Hello everyone. A very good morning to all of you. Can you quickly confirm if the audio and video is clear, please? Hello. Can you please confirm if the audio and video is clear? Okay, a very good morning to all of you. Really nice to see so many of you already there, up and excited. How is the Josh? Great. Okay, so okay. So good morning everyone, and welcome to this session for just a second. Full Josh. Let's rock everyone. Chalo. A very good morning to all of you and welcome to this session for your CA final AFM. This is arguably the most interesting and in most of the exams for sure the most scoring paper. So this is your paper number 2 for your CA final AFM, and a paper which is very important for a lot of students, not just from an exam perspective, but if you want to make a career in finance, this is the paper which is going to be your bread and butter as well. So this is Bhavik Choksi over here, and thanks a lot for giving us a chance to be a part of your AFM journey. And before we get on into the course, we'll just get a bit overview about the subject, about the faculty, about how we are going to go ahead with the batch, and then we'll start with the session today. Okay, so anything you have, anything, just put it in the chat, and I will get back to you in at the appropriate time. So let's get started and with our AFM journey. So as you would be aware, AFM is our paper number 2, and in line with the revised scheme which is there, your paper, each of these papers are going to have 30 marks of MCQs. Similar is the case for your AFM, where you will have MCQs of around 30 marks. So that will be your first 15 into 2. This is largely compulsory, and for MCQs, we will share with you a separate MCQ book. I think we have 2 volumes. I'll just get into that, but there will be some MCQ practice over there. Having said that, remember, getting your core content in place gets your MCQ in place. It is almost certain that the same MCQs, no matter how big a bank that you refer, are not going to be repeated. So it largely depends on your ability to comprehend your main concepts, and hence MCQ is an extension of your core curriculum rather than a separate set of preparation. Having said that, it is always good to practice MCQs, and we'll guide you on how to do that. And then is your descriptive paper. Now, when you look at the descriptive paper, it will have, you'll have to attempt 5 questions. So question 1 is your compulsory question. And then between question 2 and question 6, you'll have to attempt any 4. And thereby this will be 14 into 5, that is around 70 marks. Now, in your AFM study material, this has been broken up into around 15 odd topics, out of which there are 3 topics which are core theory topics like securitization, startup finance, financial policy, etc. So these are core theory topics, and the remaining around 12 to 13 topics would be a mix of theory and practical. Largely they would be practical topics, like you'll have derivatives, like you'll have portfolio, like you'll have valuation, for example, where largely you will have a lot of practical questions, but based on that there could be some theory which is asked as a pure theory question as well. And in line with what has been happening recently, whether it is Jan 26 or May 26 papers, Institute has been picking up a few concepts from your study material on which there are no sums, and they're using it in practical problems as well, and that is what we want to specifically cover as well, along with the core content. So when we discuss about the batch, I'll tell you how we are going to go about with that, but with this, your study material will be fully covered, not just on the numerical side, that was always and will always be fully covered and will be relevant, but also on the theory side, where there will be certain small concepts of theory which can be formulated into a problem. So we will even discuss that, and hence we will spend a little more time than what is required in a typical AFM exam oriented batch, but that will give you a complete overview for your understanding. Okay, so when you're looking at your AFM paper, this is your AFM paper, paper number 2, and this is largely a practical paper. When you look at the weightage of pure theory, it depends on the paper, but I would say approximately 15 odd marks. 15 marks approximately, sometimes going up to 20 marks. So 15 to 20 marks, I can say, will be dedicated towards theory. When I say theory, this is pure theory. There will be no numerical, like explain the features of securitization, what are the drawbacks of securitization, what are the sources of startup finance. This is pure theory questions, and in a bad paper, this is going to rescue you. So don't take theory lightly. We will also not take it lightly, and we will do it fully over here as well. And the remaining will be pure practical. So when I look at practical, these would be actual sums where you're looking at interest rate hedging, you're looking at share evaluation, merger evaluation of a merger, for example, which will be for the remainder of the paper. So around 80 to 85 marks of your paper would largely be practicals, and most of your MCQs are also practical MCQs only, so there can be some theory level MCQs as well. Are we clear with this? Just a second. I think there was some. Is my video clear? Yes? Okay. Okay, so when we are looking at these, paper pattern, this is going to be your paper pattern, and there have been exams where this is one of the only papers where students have reached as high as 98, close to 100 as well. So at least, I mean, we are still awaiting the May 26 results, but in 2025, out of the exams, in 2 of the exams, we had students who had scored 98 marks. Now, that shows you that the level of scoring in your AFM paper is kind of highest. You would hardly see anyone scoring 98 in FR. Audit, I mean, let's not get into that about a 98 zone. Even in DT, IDT, you would not have students scoring as much as 90 plus. Yes, the last 1 or 2 attempts have been a bit challenging, but that should not always be extrapolated. Let's say in the past few attempts, there was audit which was bad. Last 2 attempts, audit was good. AFM was slightly tricky, but tricky does not mean it was unsolvable. It was definitely a significantly above average papers, but truth be told, out of the 5 or 6 papers that you're going to write, one of those papers will be challenging. We don't know which paper. It may be AFM, it may be audit, it may be something. But remember, people who have prepared well are going to clear, and I will assure you that your preparation in this course is going to be as good, that no matter how good or bad the paper is, you're going to get a good score. Our target is a minimum exemption. That is what we aim as the passing for our AFM. It is not 40, it is 60 and above, because this is one paper which is going to kind of help you a lot in your overall scheme of things. Okay, so yes, the last 2 attempts were around 20 odd marks. It is a mixed bag, but I would say on an average, you can say 15 to 20 marks, considering MCQs, theories, etc. as well. But this is your broad range. Sometimes it has come around 10 marks as well, but sometimes it has gone up to 20 marks as well. So let's not go into prediction of how much they will say, but let's say around, we would say 15 marks. On the upper side, maybe in some attempt, it can be 20 marks as well. So let's not take one paper as a base for our extrapolation. Let us take an average process. Okay, so over here, this is regarding your paper. Now, regarding the material that you have and the resources that you're going to access, currently you would have with you an AFM Shield. So in this Shield, you will have all the concepts. So I'll just open up the Shield with you. Over here, you will have in the initial few pages the index, your revision planner, etc., which will come to at a later stage, and then there would be your core concepts which are explained. So when we are studying during the course as well as when you are revising, what you're supposed to do is you're going to go through the Shield for the concepts, and over here we will give question referencing. So for example, we are discussing, let's say, valuation of bonds. There will be a lot of theory, some key relationships, some key points, etc. And then we will mention the relevant questions. So what I want you to do is when you're revising as well, you'll read this part of the theory, have an understanding, and then apply it in a numerical sense when you look at the questions. So over here, for example, there is a measure of yield. There'll be a lot of concepts, certain steps. So what we'll do is we'll explain the concepts. You'll have conceptual clarity, but again, in this exams, you'll have to kind of get in certain difficult things in a stepwise format. So we will also have steps that you can actually follow, and then you'll have all the questions that you are going to refer. So this way, when you are preparing for the first time as well as your first revision, this is how you're going to go about. When you go into your second revision, you don't necessarily need to do it this way. You can read the entire, let's say, one section like the entire valuation of bonds and then do all the sums together. But in the initial part where you're just kind of letting the concepts settle in, you will refer the concepts, do the numericals, refer the concepts, do the numericals. So that way it becomes a lot more streamlined for your overall understanding. Now you will be doing the course now, and let's say your exam may be slightly a few months or so, or a year or so away, in which case there will be a possibility where you will not fully remember what is done, and that is very normal. Remember, a lot of students face this fight in their CA final that I have done something in the past and I don't remember it. I want you to normalize it. Not push yourself or punish yourself that why don't I remember, why was I so distracted. No, that is not the case. This is the first time ever in your last approximately 20 years of your academic journey where the gap between where you study and where you give the exam is in years. Typically, whether it is CA foundation, whether it is CA inter, your 11th, 12th, 10th grade, whatever it is, you would study, you would give a few tests, and then in no time would the main exams come, and hence recollection was not that big a problem. But in CA final, when you study, that is, while most of you would be preparing along with your articleship, and your exam is significantly after a significant period of time. So when you pick the books again, well, you are kind of in a situation where you think that you have blanked out, you don't remember anything, and you have never faced this in the past. You say, well, I've never had this problem in intermediate. Well, you know what? It is because you did your coaching, you gave a couple of tests, and then boom, the exam was on your head. This time, the gap is significantly more, and you're also, along with studying, you're working, and hence it is very, very, very normal to feel that you don't remember everything. And for that, revision videos help you a lot, and hence for each and every topic. So over here, for example, you have valuation of equity. We'll have for each and every topic, we will have a detailed revision video on YouTube. So we have two resources. One is on YouTube where you have the revision video along with the important questions which are solved. So when you go for your first revision, not for subsequent necessarily, but for your first revision, once you have done your class, before your first revision, just to be accustomed to the concepts for each and every chapter, I'll share with you the YouTube playlist as well. You can refer the revision video so that the concepts are refreshed, and then you go into it. In the meantime, if let us say you are preparing, we will also have audio pods. So audio concept summaries on Spotify. We will share that link as well. So you will have on YouTube your detailed revision videos. So YouTube will have detailed revision videos, and this is very, very valuable for every student during their revision. So this will be detailed revision videos, and in these videos we would have also discussed the important questions. So all your important questions will be discussed in these videos. And in the meantime, if you want to, see, for example, a YouTube revision video for a foreign exchange will go around 3 to 4 hours. valuation, bonds maybe around 1.5 2 hours, equity maybe 1.5 2 hours. So that way revision videos will be longer. But let's say you want to optimize in your time. Currently, the time that you have, you may, you're just scrolling. These days you should scroll for professors. So that ways you can just refer short audio notes. So we will have on Spotify for every small topic as well as big topic. Like for example, in equity, you will have free cash flow. So there'll be a 15-minute or a 10-minute audio pod where I have nothing more than 20 minutes, okay, where I would quickly refresh and discuss the concept of free cash flow. So that ways, if you have a lag of 10 to 15 minutes, whether it is FR, it is there for all topics of FR as well as for AFM, you can refer to these just audio notes, and that ways keep in touch with the subject. I know it appears to be a lot, but trust me, if you are with the curriculum throughout your journey, it becomes a lot more easier for you to work on. So there would be audio summaries on Spotify, and you can kind of review and take that into consideration. Now, this is largely on the concept side. Now, concept wise, we have the Shield, we have YouTube videos, Spotify audio summaries, which you can refer. But then when it comes to sums, so what we have done is there would be two books that you have. The first book would be your core content. We have just remodeled the books a little. So in the first book, volume 1, I believe most of you would have received the books. If you have placed the orders recently, maybe you'll receive them in some time. But in your first core book, we have given at the beginning how to kind of complete the course. This is especially helpful for students who are taking the recorded sessions. If you are live, then great, you will automatically complete. But in recorded, what happens is sometimes you start, but then you kind of get into work or something in the middle. So for you, we have kind of put a very clear schedule on how do you want to complete depending on your target. Like for example, 3 to 4 months, 2 to 3 months, 1 to 2 months. So in how much time, what should happen, the revision, test, everything has been properly done. So you can refer this if you are attending live, and I would strongly recommend that if you are attending live, ensure that no matter what, you wake up and you attend the class. You will realize that your entire course gets done in no time. But if the backlog, and by now you might have known that if your backlog starts, your backlog remains till perpetuity. Okay, so this is something that you want to cut out in the middle. So one slack day and that backlog will keep on accumulating. So keep a promise to yourself and give me that promise that no matter what, you will kind of cover up and you will kind of complete your entire course along with the class only. So there would be tests, there would be 4 tests, and over here only we have mentioned these tests which are there, and you can put your score. We will evaluate it, give you certain areas of improvements which you can note down on this page so that it is there with you throughout. So this is a different thing for an English batch or a Hindi English batch. And then when you go to, let us say, you go to this question bank. So what you've tried to do is, for example, at the beginning of every chapter, you will have the important or LDR questions. Like for example, you might say that, well, that's a big list, but there are 85, 86 questions in this entire chapter. For example, valuation, out of which we have picked up, let us say, around 25 odd questions which are really important. And within those important questions, we have put some questions in bold. So over here, you will have, these are, so what we do is before, in every year, let's say it's 2025, 2026, for all the exams in that year, we give out important questions from our perspective, and we also give a Super 90 file for AFM. For FR, it's a Super 149 file and also an important question set. But we give these important questions, and the questions which we've put in bold are those questions which are currently in the Super 90 file. So when you're revising, preferably what you would do is, at least in case of a subsequent revision, I would strongly recommend that you complete everything. At least in the first and the second revision, you do everything and not just the important and the LDR questions. These are just the questions where you should focus on a little more. So like, for example, you will take the calculator, you will scribble out, you not just read it. If it's a less important question, yes, you can just read it, understand it and proceed. But if it's an LDR question, you kind of at least scribble the question and you kind of practice it properly. If it's a super 90 question, you do it in fair, because we also want to know how our proper presentation is flowing. So these bold super 90 questions means in your entire curriculum there will be 90 questions where you will have to do it systematically, stepwise. Other LDR questions you will scribble around, you will do it properly, and this is what I'm talking about, the revision. And other questions you can refer. So that way your entire course is completed, and you are able to segregate the questions which you want to refer, questions which you want to scribble and solve, questions which you want to solve systematically. Are we understanding properly? Okay, what about the upcoming attempts? Will the important questions? See, we release these important questions, largely they remain the same. There will be some small changes based on our analysis. So what we do is, on our Telegram channel, we will send at in each year, you will have a list of the important questions on our Telegram channel, and on your Google Drive as well, you will find a folder which is an important questions, and you'll also find an amendments folder. So in that, we will keep on updating for each year. We don't know when your attempt is. So for in each of the students, so for 2026, for 2027, whenever it comes, you'll get that relevant list of important questions either on the Telegram channel or on your Google Drive link. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So what I wanted to share with you is this very important insights. Like for example, this is a question number 7 or a question. So we have even mentioned LDR over here. LDR stands for last day revision, where we will, like in question number 9, that's quite an important question. So we would have given the source from which this question is there. And then in this question, there are 2 QR codes, and if you scan this QR code, you just need to have some audio player. It can be any audio player, Windows Media, VLC, any audio player. If you have an audio player, you can just scan this. We have put this in 2 languages. One is English, one is Hindi. And in this, I would have, in sometimes less than a minute, at max 2 to 3 minutes, I would have explained everything in the sum. And specifically, I would not sit and calculate that 150 divided by 1025 is 14.62%. No, we would mention important areas where I know from my experience where a student might be stuck up, what are the points, and we would kind of run you through. So I'm not telling you that each and every question you have to listen to the audio note. However, if there's a particular question which you are revising and you are stuck up on that question and you want some bit of, let us say, support, you can kind of scan this and listen to these, and I would say 9 out of 10 cases your query would be resolved through that audio note. So this is there, sir. Is this there for each and every question? No. But is it there for every LDR question? You will see yes. So for every LDR, so this may not be an LDR question, and hence you may, but for every LDR question, at least we would have this QR code. Like for example, 19 is an LDR question, you will have this. So this will be very, very helpful. And also along with this, every question, what I've tried to do is, and this is really helpful, especially students who gave the May 26 and Jan 26 paper, all of them, I mean, a lot of them, I would say, wrote back and said that these really helped them in tackling the paper. So what we do is, along with this core solution, which is there would be reference notes. Now these reference notes are for reference. You don't have to write them in your main exam. They're for your reference. But this kind of builds up an extra level of understanding on why a particular treatment is happening. And for me, I would say my most important thing when I say concept building is the question why. If you have to do a particular treatment, why do I have to do this? Why I have to do it this way? Why not in some other way? And everyone says, I want to build concepts. I want to learn conceptually. But if I ask you, what do you mean by learning conceptually? Well, people don't really know that. So conceptual learning means when you're doing a particular treatment, you ask yourself, why this? What if this particular information was not given? What if something else was given? That is where your neural networks, your concept building is happening. I understand all of this can be done at the earlier reading. At a subsequent reading, once your concepts are built, well, they are built. If they're not built, they're not built. Then you can kind of streamline it from an exam perspective by remembering steps. But if you start with just remembering steps, maybe you might clear the exams. But trust me, this is a paper which might become, a lot of you want to make a career in finance. This is your building block. Give it its due share. If everyone says X hours, it's fine, give a little more. But let those concepts be built, because once they are built, they will remain with you. If they're not built, well, you will just remember the steps, probably get your marks, and then you might face a difficulty. So we want to balance out. We want to give you the answer to the question why, but at the same time, we want to balance out with your exam. So we will also give you steps, but first we'll always address the question why. And that reference note will really help you. And there are a lot of places where we will have this extra. Now, extra over here again is something that what if something extra was given or something was removed, then what would you have done this, or what if there's a shortcut possible? So these are the two things which you can refer. And if you have less time, and if you, I mean, every student is different, and I don't want to kind of say what is right or what is wrong, but if you have less time and you don't want to spend so much time on the why, absolutely fine. Then you don't really need to bother a lot about these reference notes or extra notes. This is mainly for a student who wants to have that deeper conceptual understanding and maybe want to address any kind of paper, whether it's a Jan 26 or May 26 paper as well. So over here, these reference notes, and this will be there in almost every question, or these extra notes will really help you a long way. So this first volume, which is entirely there, will be largely linked to your core solving. So if you are able to do this entire volume properly, then whether it is MCQ or a descriptive, you should be in a position to solve it really well. Now, additionally, there is a volume 2 where there are practice questions. So in AFM, practice is everything, and along with the classwork, if you do some bit of practice, and we will reference while we are solving that which are the questions you need to do along with the concepts that you've done, then these practice these practice books will really help you. Like for valuation, we will have questions. Truth be told, if you have limited time and you don't have time to do practice, it is fine if you don't do this practice set. But personally, I would prefer that practice book you should do after you have done the classwork book for a better understanding and getting, see, I mean, if you have done something in class, whether you like it or not, there'll be a bias. If you're not sleeping and if you're slightly awake, then you would have this, recollect that, oh, in class sir had done this like this. But the same thing with a different name, with a different number, forces you to think, because now you don't have a bias. And that is where if you make those small mistakes, you can yourself self-correct. And hence practice book helps you in that. Now, a student says, if I don't do the practice book, is it okay? Well, that's absolutely fine. But if I do it, well, that's an advantage. And along with this, there will also be MCQs behind in this book, which you can kind of practice on. Other than that, from what we are going to separately share with you in a soft copy format, and we'll do it parallelly along with every chapter, is these concepts which are there in the study material, just concepts for which institute has not given any separate sum. Like for example, most of the questions in your entire curriculum used to take the simple average, that is called as arithmetic mean. However, there is a concept called as geometric mean, on which there is no sum, or a harmonic mean, which till date there is no sum or there is no mentioning as well. So what we would try to do is, we will kind of pick up those concepts from the study material, put that into a PDF file and discuss this, that these are the additional things, the concepts, as well as a small numerical wherever it is required, along with an illustration, so that you kind of have clarity. So that way, this is your entire resource bank. After this, if you ask me, do I need to do anything else? My answer is not necessarily required. But if you have time, which I don't think a lot of students do, you want to refer the study material, most welcome. But it's not mandatory. If you refer this resource set properly, you have it all covered. You don't really need to go into those separate additional workings, in my understanding. Now, your attempt may be, let us say, somewhere in 26 or 27 or whatever, 28, I don't know. In that, what if, sir, there are any changes? See, AFM is a paper where there are no amendments per se. It is not law-based, and hence there are no amendments, but by chance, if there is something, there'll be an amendments folder. Also on YouTube, every RTP that comes, or let's say a paper that comes, what are the tricky questions, what are the new or different questions, we will put a video. It will be there on YouTube. which is easy to refer. But in case you don't want to go into the hassle of finding a lecture on YouTube, for every RTP or every paper, if there are new questions, we put a separate video. So you might be worried that, so my attempt is in 2027 or 28, for example. What if there are changes post that? You have it all covered. We will give for every RTP, for every exam paper, separate videos, and you have to kind of separately refer that. Now, I will try my best to put everything on your table. But remember, the task of studying is on you. And it is very easy it's not always as easy, but it's easy to start something. But to continue it in a disciplined manner is what is going to differentiate you from the lot. And trust me, you might think that there are so many students, there's so little passing. A lot of students are unfortunately distracted by work, distracted by social media, so their core focus on their studying may be slightly less. So if you're able to just get that discipline, I'm not saying that you don't sleep, I'm not saying that you don't go with your friends, do everything. But if you kind of schedule your time a little, be realistic, and if you give some time to your books on a daily basis, you see a lot of compounding effects, compounding of money, compounding of time, compounding of study, all happen in the same way. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Everyone sprints in the last 2 or 3 months, but if you're able to well pace it, no matter what has happened. So you might have invested time well or not in the earlier few days, that's fine. But remember, this is the longest time you have from today till the date of your exam. So if you utilize the time in front of you without regretting what has happened in the past, you still can make a huge difference. And I want you to promise your own self, I want you to promise me that you give that time. See, we as professors will try to give our best. However, the difficult task, we can always claim that we have got these rankers and we've got 30 ranks or 40 ranks. But to be honest, all the effort is of the student who has put in the hard work. So it is you we were just fortunate that you trusted us. And I want you to also be, let us say, motivated, because this is one thing that you can kind of take. This is the last farewell in your academic journey. You have always, since the last 15-20 years, articleship, I will say that yes, you have done some things, but other than that, you have largely studied. So this is for most of you a farewell to your academic journey, and let it be a good, grand farewell. And this is one exam where you don't have the past baggage. Like, for example, I was fortunate to get a rank in my CA final. But truth be told, I was never in the toppers list, even in my division, forget school or college, or not in my foundation. I used to work hard, but I was nowhere close to, let us say, a rank in any of my earlier levels, not even in my division, let alone school or the entire country. But if someone asks me now that how did you get a rank in CA final, to be honest, when I look back, I don't see one specific reason of what I did. It is just that I thought I was studying, and I used to study reasonably well, but I was studying continuously. So I believe that compounding effect, which I had more months, I used to put in that effort, and maybe, just maybe, other people who got very involved in their articleship or some other commitments did not put in as much effort. And we have seen this attempt after attempt, year after year, that in CA final, you get so many first time rank holders. In fact, last to last attempt, we had, I think a few attempts back, I don't remember, the 9th rank holder, first time rank. There was, I think, in the earlier attempt, I think the 21st or so, first time rank. So I'm not saying that you should also get a rank, and if you don't, no, that is not the case, but you should aim for the moon. And this is one exam where there is a possibility, no matter how what was your past baggage, you will see so many stories at CA final, because you have more time. People who are, let us say, blessed, maybe a little distracted as well. So if you are able to get your focus, and I want you, I'm just telling you at the beginning of the course so that you kind of maintain that. And during the course as well, we'll try to share a few stories, a few insights, a few motivation things, so to keep your momentum going. But just promise yourself that let it not just be a small spark, let it be a journey. And then when you look back, well, that's a very proud badge of honor. Your parents have worked so hard for you. You have worked so hard to reach CA final. Why not take that? I mean, you should at least give your best. After giving your best, if you believe that yaar nahi hua, but then you don't have yourself to blame, then it is maybe something else. Not everything is meant to be. But if you yourself regret that, Arey, why did I leave this? Yaar, I should have done this. That is a pain that you don't want. So the pain of regret is the worst kind of pain which I don't want you to have. And we're sure that we're going to cover everything and we're going to give our best. So are we in a good position to start? Okay, so before we jump on into the main curriculum, I'll just share with you a bit about myself, and I'll also kind of share a few stories throughout this course. But myself, Bhavik Choksi, and I've been teaching CA finals since more than 15 years. I teach FR and AFM at CA final, and other than that, at intermediate, I do advanced accounting. Other than that, I also teach CFA, both level 1 and level 2. And those insights I will definitely help in your CA final AFM as well. So definitely we're not going to do the entire CFA over here. However, certain concepts which I think which are overlapping and which can help you is something that I will definitely share with you. I've completed my CA, my CS, and my CFA along with let us say diploma IFRS, which I did a few years back, and I was blessed to get a rank in my CA final, and that was the first time I could get a rank in my CA, and I would definitely want that same story to kind of resonate with you as well. And after qualifying, I was working in the investment banking teams of Morgan Stanley and then JM Financial. And a lot of those learnings we want to share with you, the practical insights, because a lot of you want to get into investment banking, private equity, etc. So a lot of these insights I will share. But all throughout, now this is a question which haunts me, which haunts a lot of people, that if you were in investment banking, how did you end up in teaching? Well, I've been teaching since a very, very early age. All throughout my college, I've taught in the sense that I used to teach kids from the 3rd grade to the 9th grade, 10th grade, or later I used to feel a little that I'll not be able to do justice because these are important exams, but I used to do tuitions. I have financed my college using the tuition money that I could earn. And teaching is something which came naturally to me. And this is something which I really find love in. I really am passionate, and I would want you to kind of learn a lot of things even while I was working, whether it is JM Financial, Morgan Stanley, with very stringent schedules. I used to teach on weekends. I used to teach CFA then because CA required a lot more time. So I used to teach CFA, and then the love for teaching got the better of me. And a few years into my jobs, I spent quite a few years, but a few years into my job, I decided that this is something that I wanted to do full time. And since then, I've not looked back, and the love of all the students really helps a lot more. And I really want to share everything that I've learned over these years with you. And please keep on shooting your queries as well. I would like to address most of them. And that is how we have also evolved. And if at the end of this course, we kind of feel the love for AFM rather than being scared of it, that is my milestone, that you kind of like this beautiful subject that is there in front of you, and you understand it a lot more rather than just mechanizing it. And we'll have a good time. We'll try to understand what is correlation, what is covariance, what is standard deviation, and at the same time remember the formula as well. But the why behind each of them is what is going to build your concepts. Other than that, while I'm not teaching, I love to travel a lot, and we've done a lot of backpacking trips, slow, long. So we like to do a lot of adventure, lot of unplanned, unstructured travel, which really hits well with us. The uncertainty, the adventure of that really helps. And I used to swim. I still swim a lot, and I was an open water. Earlier, I used to, while I was in, I used to do a lot of pool swimming, in the sense I used to represent the state, and then we moved on into open water. That is, we currently swim in races which are in the ocean or in the rivers, 5 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 10 kilometers, etc. So currently I've been doing a lot of open water swimming since the last 10 or 15 years. Earlier I used to do a lot of pool swimming per se. So this is a bit about me, and I will be with you for the next few days, and till the date of the exam I will be with you. And I hope really that this journey is fulfilling, and you get to learn a lot in your AFM. Okay, good to go. For single group persons, individual paper, good marks are there. Yeah, why not? Individual, for single group as well, individually a lot of students score really good marks. And in my opinion, the highest marks I've generally seen students getting is in the AFM paper, as compared to, definitely in the single group there is audit, and then there is FR. FR people get decent marks. Audit is always a fight, and AFM is the paper which kind of helps students score really well. Okay. So Nariyal todte, and let's get on into our main curriculum. So this is regarding the basic introduction, resources, material. If you have any other questions as well, feel free to reach out to our team, and the contact details would be 79772 you can reach out over here, and they will help you if you have any technical or other queries. Apart from that, for doubt solving, we will have dedicated groups. You can always ask your queries in class, but other than that, we'll have dedicated WhatsApp groups, Telegram channels, or Telegram groups where you will get access to, so you can kind of put your queries over there, and they will be resolved. Other than that, if you have any other issues, please feel free to reach out to the team, and we'll be happy to guide you with the same. Our question bank, which covers which year, like from 2018? Yes, we have not just taken 2018, we have even taken questions which we thought as relevant even before 2018. So definitely you will see RTPs, which is the syllabus changed first in 2018, then it changed in 2024, and then there are talks that it is again going to change, but let's not speculate on that. But in 2018, post that you will find all RTP's exam questions. So that is there. In fact, there will be certain places where you will see this practice manual word being mentioned. So this practice manual is for questions which are there. Earlier there was a paper called as MAFA. So MAFA was your FM, currently what we call as AFM. Earlier was SFM, Strategic Financial Management. Before that it was MAFA. So you have taken everything. So for example, if I can just show you over here, there may be certain questions where we have written practice manual as well. So this is there in your study material also, was there in the old practice manual as well, but there may be certain questions, just a second, which may be just practice manual written. See, like question number 12 over here, it is just practice manual. So this is not there in your current ICI study material or RTPs or MTPs, but we thought that this is a good question, so we have put it over here, even including the older material. So over here, you are very well covered. In fact, in your recent FR paper which went by, there was a question which came from the 2014 papers. It is not that same, you have to refer everything. Person was not even referred 2014. Based on their concepts they can solve. But what we have tried to do is we have even taken, this even helped a lot of our students in FR, where I think in May 24, there was a question which we had taken from the older materials. And a similar question came as compulsory consolidation question. So I know that you only want to do the questions which are there, but if I've selected a question from an older material, which is a practice manual question, there's some professional experience that we have taken to incorporate that question. Yes, if you cover the material we have, we'll cover the study material. You don't need to refer anything separately. Okay. Anything else before we jump onto the material? No? Okay. Perfect. So let us get on into our first topic, which we will start with portfolio management. So portfolio management over here is a tier 1 category or an A category chapter. It is very important from an exam perspective, and from an exam perspective, you can expect around 2 questions at least from this chapter. So I would say around a 10 to 15 mark weightage for portfolio management. So if I were to just, we'll also discuss along with every chapter what are tier 1 category, that is A category, tier 2 category, that is B category. Like mutual funds, for example, is a B category chapter, or tier 3 category, that is, let's say something like a risk management, is a tier 3 or a C category chapter. So portfolio almost certainly is going to make it to your main exams, and this is something which is very, very important from an exam perspective. So let us get started. So when we look at, okay, also one more thing, whatever board notes we will write, we will share that with you on Google Drive. So if you want to scribble around together, or you want to use your calculator to solve, it is perfect. But remember, this is an exam oriented batch. So what we want to do is we want to balance coverage, concepts, and most importantly, time. So the way we are going to proceed further into this batch is we will have questions we will discuss. I will solve each and every question. So this is your same book which will be there in your regular batch. This same book is also there in the exam oriented batch, and I will cover each and every question, not selected questions, not LDR questions, each and every question. So you have full coverage. But we want to optimize on time. So what we do is, for example, in a regular batch, what I would do is I would sit and solve, like, just give me a minute before we start the portfolio management bit. So for example, I'll just, so that you are aware of what you need to do as a student and how the batch is going to progress, so that we can optimize on time as well as coverage. Like, where is this portfolio management? This is advanced capital budgeting. Portfolio. Okay, so let us say over here in portfolio management, you have this question, and over here in a regular batch, what we would do is we would sit and calculate. Student will sit and write each and everything like you used to do in probably your intermediate in your regular classes. So you'll read the question, we will sit and write everything. Whereas in an exam oriented batch, what would happen is this data I would solve, for example, over here, okay, like 55 minus 50 upon 50 into 100, or we will just discuss it, what is there. So we are very clear, this is not an LDR question. For an LDR question, we will sit and solve it entirely. For every other question, we will discuss it. So will I have the time to sit and write everything? Well, if you're sitting, it depends on what you prefer. For most students, I believe understanding concepts and referring them and even doing it in rough on your calculator is enough. But if you are the type of person who wants to solve each and everything, then it is more of a sit and solve, means sit and write. If you do it in scribbling format, you will be able to do it in an exam oriented batch as well. Or if you have a recorded session, then you can pause and try. But in my opinion, it will take you as much time as it does in a regular batch, then might as well do the regular batch only. So in an exam oriented batch, we will be discussing and solving. For questions which are necessary, we'll be solving entirely, and I will tell you to also solve on pen and paper along with me. But for other questions, we will be discussing, we will be solving, we'll be discussing, we will be solving, rather than sitting and writing each and everything. Because if we do that, well, then that is exactly the time that you take for the regular batch. Or if we want to do it in a lesser time, we have to cut down on the questions. Now, I don't want to cut down on the questions for sure. So I want to do all the questions. I want to discuss all the questions. And in case you want to try this on your own separately, you can just write the word T next to it. That is try. So in case you want to try it on your own, you can either, if you're looking at a recorded class, pause and try that separately. Otherwise, you can just write the word T, and after the session is over, go back to that and try that on your own on pen and paper, and that is sufficient. If you want to try each and every sum on your own on pen and paper, then it is exactly a regular batch, not an exam oriented batch. We will not be able to cover everything and also cut down on the time. So this is how we are going to progress. As you see the class further, you will understand what I mean by that, but I want you to be clear about it so that you are not in a position where you are just switching between your books and your paper. No, we are just going to understand each and every concept in depth. We're going to do each and every sum. We're going to solve. I'm going to solve probably in rough questions. I will do the adjustments. You can do it on your calculator. You don't need to write it down. Whichever questions which are LDR, which you need to write it down, I will tell you and we'll solve it together. Is that clear? Yes? Okay. For the new finalists studying AFM for the first time, do all the questions well after classwork practice. Okay, so in this batch, even if you're a first time CA finalist doing AFM for the first time, that is absolutely, I mean, this batch is suitable. Just that probably after the session, if you want to practice it on your own, as I said, you write the word T and you try the question on your own and you build up your notebook. But in terms of concepts, in terms of coverage, this batch will cover everything. So even if you're a first time, or if you have done a bit of AFM earlier and you have forgotten it, or your concepts are not really good, this kind of works really well, because you're not going to cut down anything on the concept side. We're not even going to cut down anything on the question side. It is just that we're going to optimize more on the solving time. Like for example, like in FR, if you are doing an amalgamation or a consolidation question, you typically sit and prepare a schedule 3, make the format. That is going to take a lot of time. In an exam oriented batch, what we are going to do is we are going to look at the solution which is there with you. We are going to look at board notes which are already there with us, and we're going to discuss everything. So we are going to sit and calculate the goodwill. We are going to sit and calculate the PC. We are going to sit and do all the postings, but we're not going to sit and invest our time in making a schedule 3. If you like doing that, great. But then probably you can do it after the session. Or if you're looking at a recorded class, you can pause it and do it separately. Yes, running notes in class, we call it as board notes, and we will be sharing that with you on the Google Drive every day. By chance, I would want you to ensure that you sit for each and every class, don't miss anything. But if you have some pre-commitments and you have to miss a class, then the lectures will be uploaded on the same day on the Google Drive link, which you can kind of upload and view. Practical implications, definitely we will use our experience. And I mean, for example, if you see markets today as well, we will discuss, there's an expectation of kind of a bloodbath in the markets this week. Last week, Nasdaq closed at a very, very low. So we'll discuss all of these as well in class. So you will get a much more rounded perspective. Your exams curriculum is definitely the center point, but we will definitely have a lot more. There's, I mean, Rajesh exports, what has happened, a lot of things that we want to discuss and we will discuss. Are the books given for self-study? No. So we have changed the books from this batch onwards. So we have reorganized it, but the books that are for self-study would be the same, just that in the earlier batches, we had practice questions and your classwork questions in the same book. We would have a separate classwork and practice. We would have aligned. There was more spacing. So we have tried to reorganize the books, but your existing book has the highest number of problems, including the May 26 problems, as compared to any older version that you may be seeing your friends have. So your friends might have a different version of your book, but this version has the maximum problems. It also includes the May 26, Jan 26, whatever it is, papers, RTP, and any question which is there in the older versions will always be there in your book. Maybe your book will have slightly more as compared to any other older book. So you don't need to sit and compare with other books. We've just realigned the placements of practice going into a separate book, classwork going into a separate book, etc. Okay, perfect. So I think that addresses most of the queries, you can put it on your chat. We will address it in some time. But now we'll go on into the chapter of portfolio management. Go to page 36 of your AFM Shield and let's get started with portfolio. So your lectures, you'll have a break at around anywhere between 8:30 to 8:45. We'll have a 15-minute break in the middle. And other than that, your session will be split up into approximately 2 sessions of 1.5 hours each. That is how we progress. Typically around 8:30, we have a break for around 15 odd minutes. Then again from around 9:15, from 8:45, I'm sorry, to around 10:15, we will have the next session. Clear? Can we jump into the core content? Yes, I think it should work. There will be a few new questions, but most of them, those from the earlier edition, the new questions would be from the recent RTP, the May 26 paper, Jan 26. So if you're able to kind of, and there'll be source. So if you can just cover that up. Soon we'll put an addendum PDF as well for that. So I think that should work. Okay, so Bhagwan ka naam lete hain and let us get started with our core content. Okay, so portfolio management. Now, what do you mean by a portfolio management, or what do you mean by a portfolio manager? Someone who's going to manage a portfolio, does portfolio consist of a single security or does it consist of a group of securities? So it consists of a group of securities. Now, when I want to assess just a single security, we have a separate chapter called as valuation of securities. But when I'm holding these securities in a portfolio, what are the dynamics that need to be considered over here is what is going to be studied in portfolio management. So this is a group. You are holding a group of securities. Can you give me some examples of a portfolio manager? Okay, a mutual fund manager, a private equity fund manager, a venture capital manager. These managers are investing in a group of securities. So when I'm a mutual fund manager, I'm investing it collectively in a group of securities, and I am a portfolio manager. So as a portfolio manager, what are my core objectives? My core objectives as a portfolio manager is to look at the relationship between return and the relationship between risk. So these are the two parameters. Now, one can always say that, well, you know what, I've invested in a small cap stock and I got an exceptionally high return. You invested in FD and got a very low return. Oh, they're not comparable, because FD return is lower, but so is the risk. A small cap stock or a small cap stock might give you a higher return, but so is a higher risk. So a portfolio manager's objectives is to balance the return and the risk. So an objective of a portfolio manager may be, what do I want to do with the return? Well, I want to maximize the return. So an objective will be to maximize the return at a given level of risk. Like, what do you mean by a given level of risk? Like, for example, your mutual fund might have a mandate that you can only invest in large cap stocks, which means the level of risk is you cannot go to something called as a mid cap stock or a small cap stock. You can only invest in large cap stocks. So given this level of risk, that you can only take risk of investing in a large cap stock, what is the maximum return you can get? So your objective is to maximize the return. Or let us say at a given level of return, for example, you are a debt fund manager where you are guaranteeing that I will give a return of, let us say, guaranteed return of 8%. So I have to give 8%. That is a given level of return. What do you want to do with the risk? Tell me, you want to maximize the risk or you want to minimize the risk? Quickly answer. You can write in short forms as well. That is fine, but I want it to be interactive. You can just write min or whatever it is. You want to maximize the return? Yes, but what do you want to do with the risk? Well, that's right. You want to minimize the risk at a give. So if I want to earn an 8% guaranteed return, which are the safest, like government bonds, risk-free bonds, which are the safest types of securities? That's right. I want to minimize the risk and I want to maximize the return. So when I'm looking at a portfolio manager, I'm just trying to play around these two different balls. One is regarding return, one is regarding risk. I want to maximize the return, but I want to minimize the risk. Given a choice, I would love to invest as a portfolio manager in securities which give me the maximum return, but which has the minimum risk. However, life is not what you want always. So it is very difficult to find securities which give you the maximum return, but also have the least risk. Like a risk-free security will give you minimum risk, but it will also give you minimum return. So as a fund manager, my objective is to find, cherry pick those stocks which are able to give me a good enough return, but do not unnecessarily carry a very high risk. Like for example, if I might have invested in a stock, I don't know whether you have read it or not, but there's a company called as Rajesh Exports, which had a lot of accounting issues, and we'll come to that, but that is a stock which has tanked down significantly over the last few days. You see the price has gone down significantly. So you might have invested in a company like this. Well, you're in a risk of losing a significant amount of your capital, or till the time it went up, it can give you a good return as well. So over here, you want to balance the risk and return, but before you learn how to balance the risk and return, you need to know how to calculate the return, and you need to know how to calculate the risk. So first, let's go into the return calculation. A very simple return calculation. Let us say you are looking at a stock like Reliance Industries Limited, and Reliance Industries Limited, let's say today's price is, for example, 1000 rupees. Now you want to calculate the return over a year. So if nothing is given, you will calculate the return on an annual basis. However, the return may be also calculated on a 6-month basis, 3-month basis. That is the holding period, how long you're holding. Let's say your holding period is 1 year. So your price is 1000. What are the sources of return that you will get from Reliance stock? Well, one is capital appreciation. So let's say you're expecting the price of Reliance to go up, for example, to 1200. So this is capital appreciation. But other than the capital appreciation, P1 is a price at the end of the first year, P0 is a price, let us say today. So let's say 200 rupees is the capital appreciation. But other than that, is there any other sources? Quickly answer in your chat box. Is there any other source? That's right. There's also dividend. Let's say dividend during the year was, let's say 100 rupees. Now, if I want to calculate return, what is the return? Well, one is the return in rupee terms, but generally the return is calculated in percentage terms, that is per 100. So I will calculate this return as P1 minus P0 plus D1, that is dividend during the year, upon P0 into 100. So return is calculated from the starting point, which is P0, which is 1000. So this will be 1200 minus 1000, that is 200 of capital appreciation plus 100 of dividend, divided by, for example, 1000 into 100. So this will give you, let's say, a return of 30%. Can the return be positive? Yes. Please answer. Can the return be negative as well? Well, why not? If the price went from 1000 to, for example, 800, then there's a 200 negative plus 100 of dividend. So there's still 100 negative return. Return can very well be positive. Return can very well be negative as well. So if you have invested your articleship money over the last few months, you might have seen a positive as well as a negative return that you might be earning. So return can be positive, return can be negative, return can be zero. It is a sum total of capital appreciation as well as a cash flow that you get from the stock. Now this is a return from a stock. A same thing can work for a bond. So if I'm looking for a bond, this is P1 minus P0. That's fine. The bond price can change. Plus instead of D1, you will get what? From the bond, you will get interest. So that is I upon P0 into 100. Similarly, you might be investing in a real estate project. In a real estate project, you might earn capital appreciation, but you can also get a rental income. So the price appreciation in the real estate project plus, let us say, the rental income that you have got will give you the return. Or you might be investing in a mutual fund. If you are aware, like you have a share in a company, you have a unit in a mutual fund. So mutual fund gives distributions. Distributions can carry various names. Like there can be a dividend distribution. For example, when a mutual fund invests in stocks, these stocks give dividend to the mutual fund and the mutual fund gives back that dividend to the unit holders. That is called as a dividend distribution. Other than that, it is possible that the mutual fund had, let's say, stocks, they sold some of the stocks, they earned capital gains and they distribute that capital gains. Can also be called as a capital gain distribution. For a unit holder, at the end of the day, that is cash coming in their hand. And as a result, for a mutual fund holder, it can be, usually the price of a mutual fund is quoted in terms of NAV. Have you heard about NAV? Net asset value. Like in shares, you quote the share price. In mutual fund, you usually quote the NAV, the net asset value. So when you look at the net asset value or NAV, you will say the NAV at 0.1 minus NAV at 0.0 upon NAV at 0.0. However, you will get some distributions as well. The distributions can carry various names. This can be a dividend distribution, capital gains distribution, etc. into 100. That will give you the return for a mutual fund unit. So basically, long story short, in case you want to calculate return for a single year, the return can be calculated as the capital gains element plus the cash flow element. The cash flow can be in the form of dividend, it can be in the form of interest, it can be in the form of rentals, it can be in the form of any kind of distribution. Any problems with this? No? Okay. So this takes care of return. Now in return, there can be a few special cases that we will come in some time, but for the time being, this is your base for return. But let's say this is for the first year. Now, if I go to the second year, let us say you have been given P2, price at the end of the second year. For example, I don't know, let's say this is 1350 and D2, for example, let's say this is what, maybe 90. Now, if I have to calculate a return for the second year, how will you calculate? I'm saying for the second year. If I want to find the second year return, how will you calculate? So I'll calculate it as P2 minus P1 plus D2. So everything what is happening, the capital appreciation that is happening in the second year, the distribution that is happening in the second year, divided by what? Please answer, divided by what? Will I divide it still by P0, that is the initial price, or will I divide by P1? That is right. I'll divide it by P1 because over here, when I look at the return for the second year, the starting point was the price at the beginning of the second year. That is 1200. So over here, when I look at P2, this is 1350 minus P1, this is 1200 plus D2, which is 90 upon 1200 into 100. So basically this will come to what? I think 150 plus 90, that is 240 upon 1200, and this comes to a 20% return. This is the return for the second year. Now, most of the times this is sufficient, but when you do the mutual fund chapter, you will see that sometimes there is a holding period return. So if I want to calculate the holding period return, how long is your holding period? Question might tell you to calculate the holding period return. Tell me, how long is the holding period? Is it only 1 year? No, holding period is 2 years. In which case, your holding period return is P2 minus P0 plus D1, that is dividend in the first year, plus D2, dividend in the second year, all the dividends across the holding period, upon P0 into 100. So this will give you what is called as the holding period return. P2 over here comes to 1350 minus P0, which is 1000, plus the dividend of 100 plus the dividend of 90. So this is across the holding period, you have earned this much of dividend as well as this much of capital appreciation upon 1000 into 100. So this comes to what? 350 plus 190 comes to 540. So this is approximately what? 54%. This is approximately 54%. Are we clear with this? Yes, most of the times mutual fund returns will include a capital appreciation element as well. So this is your holding period return. However, there is another concept called as annualized return. Someone might say that you're earning 54%. No, but I'm earning 54% over a 2-year period. Usually, most returns are given on a per annum basis. Like if you ever try to open a bank fixed deposit, sir, with articleship, where do we have money for an FD? Yes, but articleship is just a matter of time. Now you are going to become a CA and then paisa hi paisa. ऐसा लगता है. But let us say, if you want to find, if you look at the bank FD rates, they are always given. Even if you put a 5-year FD, they don't give you the total return over 5 years. They give you a return as a percentage per annum. So some questions might tell you, by calculate annualized return. What do you mean by annualized return? Well, I will say that my holding period is 2 years. Over 2 years, I've earned 54% on a simple interest basis. On a compounded basis, it is different, but institute usually takes this working on a simple basis. On a simple basis, if I want to calculate an annualized return, so if I want to calculate annualized, which means over the entire holding period, you have earned 54%. However, on an annualized basis, this would be the same 1350 minus 1000 plus 100 plus 90 divided by 1000. Sir, this is the same. Yes, into 100 so that it becomes a percentage. But in this particular case, you will do an annualization. That is, this is the return, for example, for a 2-year investment. If I want to do it on a per annum basis, I will do 1 by n. N over here is 2 years. So I will divide it by the holding period, and thereby this will be 54% is not per annum. But when I do divide by 1 by n, that will give me around 27% average per annum. This is not exactly accurate because it is using a simple interest basis. Using compounding, we'll see how it is to be done. However, using 12 by m is also fine. If you do into 12 by m, that is 12 divided by 24. That is nothing. So if you're taking years, then 1 by 2. If you're taking months, then 12 by 24. Is the annualized return same as CAGR? Not exactly. CAGR will use compounded annual growth rate. Here you're not using compounding, you're using simple interest basis. We'll do compounded in, let us say, due course. But abhikali on a simplified level, you should be able to calculate the yearly return. Like for example, 30% was a yearly return for the first year. 20% was a yearly return for the second year. You could be able to calculate the holding period return. That is not the yearly return, the return for the entire holding period. Let's say that is 54%. And let's say the annualized return, that is the entire holding period. If I were to divide it on a per annum basis, on a simple basis, not on a compounded basis, then this is 27%. Are we clear with this? Any problems still here? Okay. So this is your base for the purpose of return calculation. When we look at, let's say, portfolio on page number 36, at the beginning you have the entire summary of the entire chapter, where we are first focusing on portfolio and single security. So we are still learning how to calculate a single security return, then we learn how to calculate single security risk, then portfolio return, and then portfolio risk. Okay, so why isn't D1 considered in the second year return denominator as it is compounding? Because you're looking at just the price appreciation. So that money which is received is already separate from your stock. So when you're looking at the price appreciation started from 1200 rupees. You did not appreciate. If I take 1200 plus 100, that is 1300, I would say that there is just a 50 appreciation, which is not correct. It's an appreciation of entire 150 rupees. Okay, so over here we will proceed further into let's say the broad theory, portfolio return and risk. A portfolio involves a combination of securities like shares, debentures, etc. A portfolio manager, like a mutual fund manager, will try to manage the portfolio based on the stated objectives of risk and return. That is, he will try. Okay, keep a highlighter with you. Especially for sums, I will tell you certain things to be highlighted. Like LDR questions, you might refer entirely, but there may be certain questions where there is one particular adjustment. So I'll tell you that adjustment to highlight in the question and that same adjustment to be highlighted in the solution. Because AFM is a smaller subject as compared to FR, but AFM has just 1.5 days before the paper, unlike FR, which has, let's say, a good week that you can invest before the paper. So that 1.5 days coverage is very difficult for the entire material, and hence we will highlight selected things, especially in our sums, where I will highlight certain adjustments in the question, in the solution. So when you are revising, you just focus on those specific areas. So keep a highlighter with you handy. Okay, so over here, he may try to maximize the return at a given level of risk or minimize risk at a given level of return. So this is your core objective of a portfolio manager, but for doing that, you need to be able to measure the risk and return. So in order to assess, you'll have to calculate the risk and return. First, we're going into the return part, which is relatively easier. Single security return. The return from a security like a share can be calculated by looking at its overall return on a percentage per annum basis. Typically, if nothing is given, we'll calculate things on a percentage per annum basis. Okay, the return comprises of capital appreciation, that is P1 minus P0, as well as the cash flows like dividend for a share. So this is P1 minus P0 plus D upon P0 into 100. So this is a single security return where we have mentioned what is P1, what is P0, what is D. D represents cash flows from investments, which can be interest for a bond or a distributions for a mutual fund. It is usually calculated on a percentage per annum basis, can be positive, can be negative, or can also be nil. So this is a very basic thing for which we are going to apply this in our books. We can just refer on the screen. You don't need to sit and calculate this separately. You can just do it on your calculator parallelly. You don't need to write it in your books. Question number 1. Let us go to page number 140 of our volume number 1. Are we there? Question number 1, page number 140, volume number 1. Okay. A mutual fund has a net asset value of 50 rupees at the beginning of the year, which means this is NAV 0. During the year, a sum of 4 rupees was distributed as income, that is dividend, beside 3 rupees as capital gains distribution. At the end of the year, the NAV was 55 rupees. This is NAV 1. And these 4 rupees and 3 rupees are the distributions, D1. Calculate the total return for the year. Quickly calculate that on your calculator, please. Well, I will calculate this as 55 minus 50 plus which all distributions will I take? Well, I'll take 4 rupees as dividend distribution. I will also take 3 rupees as capital gains distribution upon 50 into 100. Okay, so this will be 5 plus 4 plus 3, that is 7 upon 50. Can you quickly tell me in percentage terms what is your answer? That's right, 24% should be your answer. Should we state a note or assumption if question does not specify per month? I did not understand the query actually, but usually if nothing is given, the return is always calculated on a per annum basis only. Okay, suppose the mutual fund in the next year gives a dividend of 5 as income distribution and no capital gains distribution, and the NAV at the end of the second year is 50. What is the return for the second year? Achha, if this is asking you the return for the second year, not the holding period return, not the annualized return, it is just asking you the return for the second year. So if I want to calculate the second year return, how will I do that? Well, for the second year, I will do P2. What is P2 over here? 50 minus P1, which is 55. Is it possible that the price can go down? Well, why not? So P2 minus P1 plus the distribution. What is the distribution? The distribution over here is, I believe, 5 upon 55 into 100. So what is your answer coming up to be? 0. But can your return be 0? Well, why not? It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be 0 as well. It's a very basic question. Once you revise this question for the first time, if you're comfortable, you can even put a cross next to it. So on your second and your third revision, you don't need to touch upon this. So then why are we doing this? Because it is a concept builder. Slowly, this will build concepts, and eventually once you are comfortable with calculating returns, you may not necessarily need to refer these sums because you just have 1.5 days. Okay, but for the first revision, you should. Subsequent revisions, if you are comfortable, you can just put a cross mark. Okay, so this is your question number 1, very basic. Next, you go on into the concept of risk. Listen to this carefully now. How do you measure risk of a security? Can you give me any idea? Return is relatively easier. You can always say capital appreciation, you can always say dividend, but risk is not as easily shown in the stock market or any data. Can you give me some measure of risk? How will I measure risk of a particular security? No? Okay, one of the most crude ways of measuring risk. Now, what is the base for risk? Tell me, is a risk-free security or a government bond or a bank fixed deposit, is that risky? No. Why? Because it has no volatility. You put a fixed deposit which is going to give you a 6% return. It's a 3-year fixed deposit. It will give you 6% in the first year. It will give you 6% in the second year. It will give you 6% in the third year. there is no volatility between what is expected and what is your return. And hence, if there's no uncertainty, there's no risk. So the volatility is the source of risk. So, well, very nice. A lot of you are saying standard deviation. That's quite impressive if you are doing it for the first time. But nevertheless, see, for a layman, if you are investing in a stock, do you think as a student or as a layman, I'm giving you a practical perspective, will you sit and calculate standard deviation? Have you ever, if you have invested in a stock, have you ever calculated standard deviation? Well, probably no. This is a very good measure. In fact, it's one of the best measures. But one of the other measures for measuring risk is, like, for example, if I look at CMP, CMP is a current market price of a stock like Reliance. Let's say there's a similar stock like ONGC. Both of them are into oil and gas, for example. So Reliance has a current market price of 1000, ONGC also 1000. There's something called as a 52-week high and a 52-week low. 52-week high and a 52-week low. So over here, I would say Reliance has gone up to 1200, gone down to 800. For example, over the last 1 year, ONGC has just gone up to 1050 and it has gone down to 950. Now, by mere observation, I don't even want you to calculate a standard deviation. Can you tell me which stock appears to be more risky? In which stock is there more volatility? Well, it is Reliance. This is called as range. If you remember, range. Range is the upper and the lower limit, the gap. You look at the range, and Reliance seems to have a higher range as compared to ONGC, which seems to have a smaller range, and hence RIL seems to be more risky. This is what a lot of retail investors look at. If you are going into a Zerodha screen or a Grow screen or whatever brokerage account you have, you will almost always see the 52-week high and low, and most retail investors look at the range, and from that they look at how much is the volatility in a stock. So this is a very crude measure of risk because it just looks at two extreme observations, does not look at what is happening in the middle, and hence if you are a sophisticated fund manager, you will generally not look at just the range while making. It's a separate question investing your articleship stipend money of let us say, I mean, if you have any surplus and you are investing, let's say 5,000 rupees as compared to some fund who's investing 100 crores, well, you will not bother into as much of doing a standard deviation. Sir, for us 2000 is big. Well, fair, you sit and calculate standard deviation then. But other than that, for a big fund manager, looking at a crude measure like range, who is just looking at two extreme observations, may not be the best way. And hence, you look at something called a standard deviation, which is considered to be the gold standard universally for the purpose of measuring risk. That is standard deviation. Now, how do you calculate standard deviation? Before you go into the formula, I want you to understand what does a standard deviation mean and why I think ONGC is not, most of you have mentioned Reliance, but ONGC is having a smaller range. It is just having 100 rupees as compared to Reliance, which has a 400 rupees volatility. So Reliance is more risky. Okay. Now, if I were to look at a few stocks, let's say there's stock X, there's stock Y, and then there is a risk-free security as well. And I'm sitting and calculating the returns like I did the returns over here for year 1, for year 2 and year 3. Let us say for stock X, my returns, I don't know, are 10% for the first year, 20% for the second year, 30% for the third year. On the other hand, for stock Y, the returns are negative 10% for the first year, 20% for the second year, and let's say 50% for the third year. Okay. Risk-free security gives you 9% for each of these years by mere observation. Can you tell me which of the stocks is most risky? Remember, risk arises from volatility, which is deviations. Which stock do you think is the most risky? By mere observation, we'll sit and calculate. But which stock do you think? Well, that's right. It is stock Y. Well, it seems to have much more higher fluctuations as compared to the other stocks. But if I want to calculate it objectively, how will I do that? Well, I will calculate, let us say, something called as X bar, that is summation of X divided by N, that is average return. I would say that, well, summation of X, that is total return, is maybe 60%, maybe over here also 60%, over here 27%. So if I want to calculate x bar, summation of x divided by n, that is giving me the average return. This is simple average. So 60% divided by 3 comes to 20%. So on an average, so when we say that how much return do you expect, what is risk? Risk is the uncertainty. So I'm saying that I'm expecting a average 20% return. In some years I've got 10, some years I've got 30, some years I've got 20, but on average I'm expecting to get, let us say, 20% return. So 20% return, but am I getting actually 20? No, in some years I'm getting 10, in some years I'm getting 30. So that is a source of uncertainty. Like for example, when I look at the risk-free security, 27% divided by 3 will come to 9%, which means on an average the return is 9, but in each of the years I'm actually getting 9 only, and hence there is no volatility, no deviation, no uncertainty, and hence no risk. So over here, when I look at risk-free or risky, the deviation from what I'm expecting, I don't know what I'm expecting. Okay, so if I look at the past data, over the past data, I see an average return of 20. So if nothing is given, we can say if the past were to represent itself, then in the past, on an average, I'm earning a 20% return in X, but actually in the past, did I get 20? No, in some years I got 10, some years I got 30. So there's a deviation. That deviation is the source of risk. Like for Y as well, my return will be 60% divided by 3, which is 20%. But on an average, Y also gave me 20. On an average, X also gave me 20. But for that 20 average of Y, there was a lot more fluctuation as compared to the 20 average for X. But how do I measure it? How do I measure it? Now the problem is, I can measure, like when I measure the average return, we are just looking at the concept first, and then we'll look at the formula and remember the formula. But as I said, why and why not? So over here, concept building, if I say that, okay, the return in the first year was 10, the return in the second year was 20, the return in the third year was 30. So if I want to find the deviation is what? X minus X bar. My actual return was in the first year 10, when my expected return was 20. I'm ignoring the percentage sign for the time being. In the second year, my actual return was 20. My expected return was also 20. In the third year, my actual return was 30. But what I was expecting was 20. So can I say that this is giving me the deviations? So ideally, this is a symbol for standard deviation. Ideally, I should say, like summation x tha, x was the return, but x minus x bar is the deviation. So ideally my formula should be summation of x minus x bar. That is, I'm taking the summation of 3 deviations. Like earlier I was taking the summation of 3 returns. X was the return for the first year, 10, 20 and 30. In a similar way, I'm taking the 3 deviations and I'm taking summation of x minus x bar divided by n. Do you think this is the formula for standard deviation? No. Why no? Because if I do this, necessarily my answer will always be 0. I have not done this calculation, but if I do this, this is minus 10, this is 0, this is plus 10. So if I total all of this, this will become 0 only. Why? Because mathematically, when I do x minus x bar, which is the mean, sits at the center of the population, which means there are equal values above the mean, there are equal values below the mean. And as a result, because mean is at the center of the population, your total of the deviations will be 0 only. I'm not just saying that this is for this data set. You take any data set randomly. आप कोई भी data set उठाओ आपके मन से, find a mean, do the x minus x bar, and you will always see the answer coming to be approximately 0 only. So this will not really give me a lot of things. Okay. So what do? I want to cut out the negative sign, but how do I cut out the negative sign? Well, mathematically, when you square, your minus 10 squared becomes positive, and hence mathematically over here, if I do x minus x bar squared, everywhere I do x minus x bar squared, this is negative 10 squared, 0 squared and 10 squared. So this will give me 100, this will give me 0, this will again give me 100. So now if I do summation of x minus x bar the whole squared, so there are still 3 observations. So n is still 3. Summation of x minus x bar the whole squared, then the number that I get, for example, will be 200. And if I do 200 divided by n, that will give me at least a number which is not 0. And hence this number is called as variance. It is not called as standard deviation, because your deviation is not a 100, that is 200 deviation. You've squared it. You squared it. And hence what you will do is, at the end, you will square root it. So over here, this is under the root 200 divided by 3. That comes to, let us say, 67 approximately square rooted, which will come to 8.16. Standard deviation will be in the same units as your main data. If your main data is in percentage, standard deviation will also be in percentage. If your main data is in rupees, your standard deviation will also be in rupees. So are you clear why we are doing x minus x bar the whole squared and then dividing it by n? Well, it is because of this negative sign, that if you don't do that, your mean is at the center of the population, your answer, you do what you want, your answer will always be 0 only. Is everyone clear with this? Okay, so if I want to practice and do this for y as well, so this is for x. If I want to do this for y, how will I calculate for y? Well, this will be y minus y bar, again the whole squared, which is, for example, a negative 10 minus 20 the whole squared, 20 minus 20 the whole squared, and 50 minus 20 the whole squared. So if I do negative 10 minus 20, that is negative 30 the whole squared. This is 0 squared and this is plus 30 squared. So this will become 900, 0 and 900. So this comes to 1800. So over here, if I look at under the root y minus y bar, summation of y minus y bar the whole squared divided by n. So standard deviation. Standard deviation means you are taking the sum of the deviations squared, and then if there are 3 deviations, you're dividing it by 3. The answer that you get is a variance, because it is in squared terms. You square root it, it becomes a standard deviation. So over here, this will be 1800 divided by 3, that is equal to 600. And if I square root 600, it comes to around 24.49. Typically, your answers, you will take up to 2 decimals and round off the second decimal over here, other than discounting factors, exchange rates, which will take more decimals. But other than that, regular workings, you can take up to 2 decimals, that is 24.49%. Now, which of the two you think has a higher risk? What does a number 8.16, what does a number 24.49 indicate? It indicates roughly that if I'm expecting a 20% return, is that 20% return sure? No, it can deviate. It can deviate plus or minus 8.16% at one standard deviation. 20% over here can also deviate, but at one standard deviation, it can deviate a much higher, 24.49%. It can be plus, it can be minus. But remember, in a good year, that can be positive. In a bad year, it can be negative. But at the end, it is a deviation. So what do you guys think it is more risky? Perfect. Why? Because it has a higher standard deviation. Now, given a choice, if you had to select between X and Y, which stock will you select? If you have to select one stock, which stock will you select? Well, I will select probably X, because it gives me the same average 20% return as Y, but it gives me at a lower level of risk. As a fund manager, I would select a stock which gives me, let's say, the same return, but at a lower risk, and hence I will select X. Okay, someone is saying Y. No, Y may give you a higher return at one of the years, but well, on an average, remember, your decision making should not be based on one of outlier. You might say, oh, in one of the years I could make 50. No, but on an average, aapne kitna bana hai? On an average, I've made, let us say, 20%. That is my average return, and that average return comes with a 24.49% risk. Now, there is another stock which gives you an almost similar return, but at a lower risk. So might as well I will select that stock. So over here, if I were to do this working for a risk-free security, if I were to do it for risk-free security, this is R minus R bar the whole squared. Well, this will be 9 minus 9, that is 0. Same 9 minus 9, 9 minus 9. So this is 0, and that is why it is called as risk-free, because there is 0 deviation. If there is 0 deviation, there is 0 risk, and hence this is called as a risk-free security. are we clear with standard deviation as a base concept? Okay. So before we go into the sums, we'll review the brief theory and then we will take a break and then go into the questions. So there is a single security risk on page number 37. The risk of a security can be calculated by looking at fluctuations or volatility. So this is the source of the risk. If there's no fluctuation, there's no risk. Like a bank FD or a risk-free security, no fluctuation. The fluctuations arise when actual returns deviate from expected, and the extent of deviation is used to quantify the risk. One of the best measures is the standard deviation, which is a formula that we have understood. Okay, in the numerator, there is deviations. X minus X bar is actually the deviation from the mean. But if I just take the total of deviations, my answer will be 0. And hence I square it to cut out the negative sign. But my answer is squared. I want the deviation, so I square root it. So this is the logic. If you understand the logic, great. Otherwise, formula you can remember, divided by n, where x bar is summation of x divided by n, and x is usually the percentage return, like p1 minus p0 plus d upon p0 for a single year. So like 10%, 20%, 30% that you calculated with the return for each year, considering capital appreciation and dividend for each of the years. So that is the return. And how much is the return deviating? The more the deviation, the more the risk. The lesser the deviation, lesser is the risk. Okay, when probabilities are given, we are not yet studied that. So at this point, we will stop for the break. We will start in exactly 15 minutes. It is around 8:38 in my watch. So we'll start by around 8:53 and we will continue and take this further. Okay, so we'll stop for a break, be back in around 15 minutes and we will start. If you have any queries, you can put it in the chat. We ignored signs for X and considered for Y. Why is it like that? No, where did we ignore? New topics will be shared simultaneously. Along with portfolio, I will share it for portfolio. Along with mutual fund, I'll share it for mutual fund. So it will happen simultaneously. And no, there is nothing which is, we considered, see, 10 is positive here, 20 is positive here, 30 is positive. Achha, in X also, if this 10 was negative, I would have taken negative. In Y, this 10 is negative, so I considered it negative. What about time value of money? This is a percentage return. That return is because of time. So I don't have to adjust it for time value. It is because I held the stock from year 1 to year 2 is what I got the return. So the return is for holding it for 1 year and bearing the risk for 1 year. You don't have to remove that. Like in a risk-free security, you are earning 9% return because you held it for 1 year. If you just remove that as well, so you're earning 0% then. You're not taking cash flows, you're actually taking the percentage return, which is because you hold it for a particular amount of time. I have already purchased and completed all lectures, so it will be available in my G Drive, isn't it, sir? Yes, I will. By, let's say, after this batch is done, we will share that those respective things. Otherwise, we'll share it parallelly as well, so you will get it in your G Drive as well. ठीक है, चलो. Hello. Can you please confirm if the audio and video is clear? Hello. It's fine now? Okay, sorry. Some issue in the streaming. Okay, so We'll progress further into our portfolio risk discussion, and uh, no, it is not necessary. If your attempt is, if it is your first time, you can still maintain pace with the class. It is just that after the class is over, you can spend some time in practicing and solving it for the questions which is required. Other than that, you will be able to grasp up the concepts which are done along with class. Okay. So let's progress, and we'll see situations on what will happen if there is a probability involved. Like for example, in this particular case, you are looking at past data. But if you were to look at a future set of observations, then in future, I don't know what is going to happen. So I would assess a probability. So I would say that, well, the return can be 20% if, let's say, there is a boom in the market, or the return can be 10% if the market remains normal, or the return can be, let us say, a -5% if, let us say, there is a recession. So you can have various scenarios. Some people call it as a best case, base case, worst case scenarios, whatever it is. Past data does not need a probability, it has actually happened. However, a future data may need probabilities, because you don't know what is going to happen. If there is a boom in the economy, maybe you will earn a 20% return, but what is the probability of this boom happening? Maybe the probability is hardly, let's say, 10%. What is the probability that there will be a normal situation? Well, let's say 60% probability, we are most likely expecting this to happen, and there is a 30% probability that there can be a recession. We are not, let's say, in a bull phase. In which case, how do you calculate the return? Let's say over here, if you want to calculate the x bar, how will you calculate x bar? Someone will say summation of x divided by n. So if I do 20 plus 10 and 5% divided by 3, that is in a way implicitly ascribing equal probabilities, one third, one third, one third, equal probabilities to each of these observations, which is not correct. Every observation over here should have a different probability set, and as a result over here, this should be, if I do 20 plus 10 minus 5 divided by 3, I'm giving in a way a one third probability to each of these observations. A much better way would be to take summation of p into x, probability based weighted average. Now, if I take weighted average conceptually, I will do summation of p by x. Tell me, will I divide this by n again? No. We will not divide this by n, because we have taken probability based weighted average, and ideally, if anything has to be divided, it will be divided by summation of p. So if you remember how weighted average is calculated, is summation of weight into x divided by summation of weights. But the thing is, the sum total of probabilities will always be equal to 1, and as a result over here you will have summation of p into x, and the summation of probabilities will in a way be equal to 1 only. So this will be, for example, what, 20 into 0.1, 10 into 0.6, and -5 into 0.3, and this total comes to probably around, I don't know, 6.5. 6 and 2, that's right, this is around 6.5%. So this is your expected return average. Let me just verify it once. 20 into 0.2, that is right, 6.5% average return. So over here, this is your average return when probabilities are given. But if I want to find the deviation, I'll again do x minus x bar. X bar over here is 6.5. So we'll do x minus x bar the whole squared. So this is 20 minus 6.5. This is 13.5. 20 minus, you don't have to write this entire thing. You can do it directly as well. Squared. 10 minus 6.5 squared, and a -5 minus 6.5 squared. So you don't have to write this, but if I were to do this, this is 13.5 into equal to. So in your calculators, what you will actually do is, you will do 20 minus 6.5. Do it along with me. 20 minus 6.5, you will see a 13.5. Press into m plus. So you will say into and then m plus. So that will directly add into your memory. So this is into m plus. So this is 182.25. Again on your own, 10 minus 6.5. You want to square it. So into m plus. So over here, it will go directly into your memory, 12.25. You can always press equal to first and then do m plus as well. That is fine. But this is negative 5 minus 6.5. That's a negative 11.5. Again into m plus. This is 132.25. And if I do a memory recall, MRC, this is 326.75. Now, if I were to calculate these values, is this correct to take the memory like this? Because if I do this, I'll then have to divide this by 3. You guys tell me, is that correctly done? No. Like if the return was 20, which is a probability of 10, the deviation also has a probability of 10% only. So if I just square this like this and don't multiply the probabilities, that is wrong. So I'll do x minus x bar squared, which I've done, but I will have to multiply it by probabilities, because if I directly divide this by 3, it is not going to give me the right answer. But this is your natural instinct. So what we are trying to do is, we're trying to take this working, but the correct answer will be P into. If you remember the board mass rule, I will first take the brackets, then multiply. Board mass, bracket open, then divide, then multiply, then add, then subtract. Have you heard about the board mass rule? Yes. So this is 0.6, 0.3. Sir, why are you discussing this? Well, because student usually makes a mistake. Remember, probability is not squared. It is just x minus x bar that is squared. Probability of the first event is 10% only. It is not 10%, 10% squared. It is 10% only. So what I will do over here is, I will first do x minus x bar the whole squared. That is 20 minus 6.5 into equal to. That is 182.25 into 0.1. And then I will put this in the memory. So over here, this will be, for example, 18.225. Second one, try on your own. 10 minus 6.5 into equal to into 0.6. 7.35. Negative 5 minus 6.5 into equal to into 0.3. 39.675. And hence, if I total this, how much do I get? I believe 392. Okay. So if I do the working of standard deviation x, that is under the root summation of p into x minus x bar the whole squared. This is p into x because I want to find the average return. This is p into x minus x bar the whole squared because I want to find the deviation. Okay. Thank you very much. And 65.25, have I made a mistake somewhere? Sorry. 18 point, okay, sorry, this is the total you are saying, 7.35, 39.675 comes to 65.25. Sorry. This is why we lose a lot of marks. Silly mistakes. So this is 65.25. So this is why you lose marks. We don't make silly mistakes. So this is 8.08. You guys tell me, will I need to square root? Yes. But will I need to divide it by n? The answer is no, because in a weighted average, I'll divide by summation of p. And if I'm dividing it by summation of p, the summation of p is always equal to 1. So over here, this is 8.08%. Are we clear with this? So when probabilities are given, long story short, you will not divide by n, but you will multiply by p. So over here, when probabilities are given, we have written that calculation of x bar and standard deviation x when the probabilities are given. In case probabilities are given, instead of taking simple average, weighted average is suitable, where probabilities are taken as weights. So this is x bar is equal to summation of p into x, and standard deviation x equals summation of p into x minus x bar the whole squared. When probability is given, we will not divide by n. While calculating, we will first square and then multiply by the probability. Otherwise, what might happen is you might multiply with the probability, then square. So that is wrong. The probability is not really getting squared. Why is the root not being applied? Because there are three observations. So over here, what is happening is you are taking the variance. We are taking three variances and you are dividing it to find the average variance. And the average variance you are square rooting. So in a way, you have to ask yourself that over here, what is happening is this is the first variance, second variance, third variance. So there are exactly three variances only. And you are finding the answer as the final variance. So you are dividing it by 3. Okay, so that kind of takes care of this first part. We'll go on into a few more problems on this section. Question number 2 is where you are taking the simple average, that is dividing it by n. Question number 3 is where we are taking the probability. So let us get started. So over here, question number 2, page number 140. ABC has the following dividend per share and the market price per share for the period 2000 up to 2005. Okay, so this is 2000 all the way up to 2005. Calculate the annual rate of return for the last 5 years. How risky is the share? So the first thing is you have to find the annual rate of return for the last 5 years. So in each of the 5 years, you want to find the rate of return. And second, how risky is the share? So in this particular case, if you want to find the return for 2000, you know the price in 2000, but you don't know the earlier price. So you can't really find P1 minus P0 for 2000. But if I want to find it for 2001, can I do that? Okay, so I will calculate this as 20.75 minus 31.25. So this is P1 minus P0 upon P0. Oh, but is there a dividend? Yes, in 2001, I've earned a 1.53 dividend. So this is plus 1.53 divided by what? Tell me, are you dividing it by 31.25 or by 20.75? 31.25, and as a result over here you will get what? 20.75 minus 31.25 plus 1.53 upon 31.25 in percentage terms. 28.7 negative. Whenever issue a negative, instead of just writing the minus sign, that is workable, we preferably put it inside a bracket so that it is easily visible as well, which is negative. Institute also does that. Now when I go to the year 2002, the question is asking you to find the annual rate of return. When I go to the year 2002, can you calculate and tell me the return quickly on your calculator? I want the final answer. 30.88 minus 20.75 plus 1.53. Shoot. How much do you get? Well, 10 point, hold on, 30.88 minus 20.75 plus 1.53 upon 20.75. This is 56.19. Perfect. That is a return for the second year. So we are going a step back. We are trying to find how the returns must have been calculated. You find the return for the third year, 2003. This is 67 minus 30.88 upon plus this time around a 2 rupee dividend upon 30.88 in percentage comes to what? 123.45%. And in a similar way, you will calculate the returns for the other years as well. So this is 28.7, 56.19, 123.45, 52.24 and 57%. So the question asks you to calculate the annual returns for each of the years. So it is 2001, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the returns we can call it as X, negative 28.7, 56.19, 123.45, then you have 52.24 and you have 57%. So rather than writing this percentage sign everywhere, what you can also do is at the top just mention that this number is in percentage. So you don't have to write this percentage sign again and again. So this is X, let us say in percentage. Now the question is asking you to find the annual returns. That is what you have done. And how risky is the share, which means what is the question expecting you to find? Standard deviation. So the question is expecting you to find the standard deviation. And for standard deviation, what do I need? Well, I need x bar, and hence I need to find summation of x minus x bar. So I'll take 28.7. What is the x bar? Well, it is the average, 28.7 plus 56.19 plus 123.45 plus 52.24 plus 57. So if I take the total, it is around 260.18, but this is the total for all the observations, where that is summation of x divided by n. There are 5 observations, and hence on an average we are expecting a 52.04% return. But in some years I've got 52, some years I've got 52.24, some years I've got 57, some years I've got 123, some years I've got 28 negative. So there is a deviation for sure. So I want to find how risky is the share, and for finding how risky is the share, I'll have to calculate the standard deviation. Okay, is there any probability in this? No. So we can calculate this directly as x minus x bar. Now instead of x bar, you can directly write the number 52.04 the whole squared. So when you take on your calculators, you will take the numbers directly, like 28.7 with the negative sign minus 52.04 into equal to. So this is directly 6518.95. I want you to do this on your calculators on your own. It is fine if you don't write, but you want to calculate it with the numbers in the memory. 56.19 minus 52.04 into m plus. This is 17.22. 123.45 minus 52.04 into m plus 5099. Tell me the next number, please. Tell me the next number, please. 52.24 minus 52.04 into m plus. This is just 0.04, very small number. 57 minus 52.04. This is 24.6. And hence if I total this, how much do I get? Well, it is around 11660.20. And if you want to calculate the standard deviation in the exam, you first write the formula down, summation of x minus x bar the whole squared divided by n. So this is 11,660.2 divided by 5, which is square rooted. And hence, at the end, you will get your answer as how much? That is right. Your answer is around 48.29. So this is around 48.29%. This is your standard deviation. So at the end, if you want, you can put that percentage sign everywhere, because your data was in percentage. Otherwise, you keep on writing percentage sign at all places. So what does this number indicate? Well, on an average, I'm expecting to earn 52% return, 52.04% return, but the return can deviate. And average deviation is around 48.29%. Largely, remember, this deviation is arising because of a few outliers. Like out of these 5, these 2 observations have been dramatic deviations. Other than that, you are largely in range of being around 52 only. But these 2 observations have been completely kind of very wide deviations, and hence there comes an average deviation of around 48.29%. No one is going to ask you to interpret the standard deviation, but the understanding of standard deviation is on an average. How much can your return deviate at a single deviation? It is around 48.29. Higher the deviation, higher is the risk. Lower the deviation, lower is the risk. Is everyone clear with this? Yes? Okay. So question number 3, I want you to pause and try to do on your own entirely. Once it is done, you can do it in rough. It's a simple question, but it is an application of what we have studied. Scribble around, do it in rough, and let me know once you're done. The following information is available in respect of return from security X under different economic conditions. Conditions can be good, average, bad, or poor. There are 4 returns. They have already calculated those returns. Like last time we had to calculate. This is already calculated, and the probabilities. Find out the expected return of the security and the risk associated with that. So you have to find the expected return, that is X bar, and the risk associated with that, let us say standard deviation X. Pause and try. Give me both the answers once both of them are done. Are we done with at least the X bar? Okay, so I think we should at least be done with the X bar by now, where you would say that how do you calculate return? Well, there are probabilities given. If there are probabilities given, you cannot take the simple average. I hope you have done that. So 20 into 0.1 plus 16 into 0.4 plus 10 into 0.3 plus 3 into 0.2. If you do, I'll get around 12% average return. So that is your expected return on an average. You might get 20, you might get 3, you might get 10. On an average, considering the probabilities, you will get around a 12% return. And then comes the question of calculating standard deviation. So how do you calculate standard deviation? Well, P, that is 0.1 into X minus X bar, 20 minus 12, the whole squared. Then 0.4 into 16 minus 12, the whole squared. Then 0.3 into 10 minus 12, the whole squared. And 0.2 into 3 minus 12, the whole squared. So if I were to do these workings, I will get an answer of around 30.2. Okay, if I get 30.2, remember it sounds to be basic right now, but a student is habituated of dividing it by n. Remember, you have to drill this in your mind that whenever you are multiplying by probabilities, you are taking a weighted average, and in weighted average, you don't divide by n. Technically, you divide by summation of weights, but summation of weights is summation of probability, which is actually equal to 1. And hence, you don't need to divide it again by any other number. So this is 30.2. But this is the standard deviation squared. It's like the variance. So you need to square root 30.2, which will come to around 5.5. Which will come to around 5.5. Are we clear with this? Everyone's clear? Okay. So this kind of takes care of question number 3. Now we go to question number 4. It is a good LDR question. So we will solve it together actually. So let us solve question number 4 together. It's an important question. There can be some variations also on this question, which we will do later. But abhi ke liye, let us go into question number 4, base question. X company invested in 1st April 2005 in certain equity shares as below. I think we will not be able to do it right now. It is based on portfolio return. Hold on. So we'll do it in some time. I think question 1, 2, 3, 5 has to be done, not 4. So we'll do 4 in some time. It's linked to the portfolio return. Question number 5. Now in question number 5, I want you to use the highlighter for one small concept and use a unique highlighter, okay? Because when you sit to revise, for a lot of you, we make the entire Indian flag. We color everything in everything so that highlight loses significance. You use a highlighter typically to mark what you are reading. No, highlighter, at least a particular highlighter should actually signify what is important. So take if you don't have it handy, that's fine, but currently you can just underline, but keep a unique highlighter for what I'm going to tell you as an important point. Other than that, when you're revising, you use your standard highlighter color if you want to. Okay, let us go to question 5. It's not an LDR question, but there's one point over here which is important. Before I progress to that, have you heard about the concept of cum interest, X interest, cum dividend, X dividend? Okay, cum means cumulative, that is including, X means excluding. So over here, let us say there is a concept in Companies Act called as a record date. Let us say there is an AGM, annual general meeting, which happened on 30th of September 2026, where the company declared a dividend and the record date was 15th October 2026. What does it mean? It means that whoever is the shareholder on 15th October will be entitled to the dividend. Now, before this, let us assume there is no change in the price. Then before the AGM, the market price of the company's stock was around 100 rupees. However, after the AGM, everyone is aware that a person who is holding the stock till 15th October will also get an additional dividend of, for example, 15 rupees. So during this period, if I'm selling the share between 30th September to around 15th October, I'm giving up the share and I'm also giving up the right of dividend, and hence I will sell the share at a cum dividend price, that is cumulative of dividend. So let us say the market price of the share does not change. For simplicity, I will say that the cum dividend price is around 115, or let's say what is the dividend amount? Let us say AGM declares a dividend of 15 rupees. In AGM, there is a dividend of 15 rupees which has been declared. In which case, a person who is giving up the share on 2nd October, 2nd October is a bank holiday, but nevertheless, 3rd October, 4th October, whatever. So if you have seen the Singham movie, a lot of things were happening on 2nd October. But nevertheless, so over here, when you look at, let us say, 3rd October, 4th October, 5th October, when you sell the share, you are giving up the share along with the dividend. So this is 115 cum dividend price. But now after 15th October, so let us say after 15th October, let us say the share will trade at an X dividend price. Because now if someone buys the share, let us say on 16th October, 18th October, 20th October, will they be ready to pay me 115? No. So how much will they pay me? So they'll pay me 100 only. This is the X dividend price. So basically, cum dividend price minus the dividend amount or whatever equals to the X dividend price. So this is 115 minus 15, which is the dividend, which will give you the X dividend price. Are we clear with this? Now some student says, okay, why is this relevant in portfolio? Let us say you bought the share on 5th October and you paid 115. This is P0. You bought the share on 5th October 26. This is P0. Now let us say after 1 year, that is on 5th of October 2027, you're expecting the price to be, let us say, 120. And they are asking you to find the return for holding this share. And during the year, let's say, during 26-27, there would be a dividend of, let us say, 5 rupees. This is another dividend. Now, if I have to calculate the return, how will I calculate it? 1 year, well, the price is 120 after 1 year. Minus, you will deduct what? 115, which is the cum dividend price, or 100, which is the X dividend price? Tell me. Why? That's right. Why? Well, because you are not really investing 115. You are in a way investing 115 today out of your pocket. However, out of that 115, you know that 15 is going to be recovered quite soon. And that is something that you know. So for the share alone, you are paying what? Well, for the share alone, you are paying 100. You're not paying 115. And as a result, remember, while calculating return, you will say that, okay, I've invested 115. come dividend, out of which 15 of dividend I'm recovering, and hence my net investment for the share is actually 100. And hence over here, if I divide this by 100 plus whatever is the further dividend, that is your return on investment. Remember, 15 is not your return on investment. It is you're investing an additional 15 because you know that legally 15 is going to come back. So for the share and the dividend, you're investing 115, out of which 15 you will recover. And hence for the share, you're investing 100. You're holding the share and then you are going to get a return. So this is your answer. So basically this will be around 25% return. Moral of the story, whenever return has to be calculated and a come dividend price or a come interest price or a come bonus price, whatever is given, you will take the X price to make it comparable, because ultimately this 120 is the price of the share alone. You need to compare it with 100, which is also the price of the share alone. Are we clear with this? Okay, so we will take that point into consideration, and for that I will highlight a particular thing in the question and in the solution, and you will highlight that. So when you're revising, you don't need to read the entire problem, you just need to refer this part, and that's it. In the solution, you are in a good place. Okay, so let us review question number 5. The following information is available in respect of dividend, market price, and market condition after 1 year. Again, following information is available in respect of the dividend, market price, and the market condition after 1 year. So you have good, normal, bad. Probability is market price and dividend is given. The existing market price of an equity share is 106. Highlight this, which is come 10% bonus debenture of rupees 6 per share. Highlight this. So this is the adjustment that you need to focus on and its impact in the solution, and after that everything else is manageable. Find out the expected return, that is X bar, and the variability. Variability is like the standard deviation of returns of the equity shares. Should the buyback offer be accepted? Okay, actually this is printed twice, so you cancel this for the timing. Uske niche you have given addition to question that is there in the institute material as well. X finance company has offered to buy back 10% debentures at face value. So 6 rupees ka debentures, they'll buy at 6 rupees, they'll give you 6 rupees back. Should the buyback offer be accepted? That is the second part of the question. First part of the question is asking you to find the expected return and the variability. And second, they are saying that if someone is ready to buy back the debenture, should they buy back the debenture? That is the second part. Record date means, well, that is as per Companies Act, that is a date which is given by the company as a cutoff date for receiving dividend. So if you are a shareholder on that date, you will get the dividend, because otherwise shareholders change every minute, every second. Na? So to whom will I pay dividend? So they will give record date that on this date, which whoever are the shareholders, they will be getting the dividend. It's a Companies Act concept. Okay, so if I look at question number 5 over here, first thing is I need to find the return. Now, unlike question number 3 that you tried, here the percentage return has not been given. So you'll have to first find the percentage return. So over here in the first, let's say good economy, this is 115 minus what? P1 minus P0, 115 minus what? Will I take 106? This is come 10% bonus debenture of 6 rupees. So we don't, so the doubt is, won't we have to take the ex-dividend price for P1 as well? We don't know that 1 year later what was the dividend, etc. So this dividend of 5 rupees in our example was declared and paid somewhere during the year. So unless it is given that P1 is come dividend, we don't assume P1 is come dividend. We always assume P1 is the price of the share only. Okay, so over here this will be 115. Okay, but this is not 106. This will be 100 over here. Why? Because 106 is for the share and the debenture. 106 is for the share and the debenture. We only want it for the share. Plus, let us say dividend, which is 9 divided by 100. So how much are we getting? So this is what I believe 24%. Then you have the normal economy, which is 107 minus 100 plus a dividend, I believe, of 5 upon 100 into 100, which comes to, let us say, 12%. And lastly, bad economy, where you have 97 and 3. So this is 97 minus 100 plus 3 upon 100, which comes to 0%. For each of these, there are probabilities. So this is 0.5, this is 0.25 and 0.25, and thereby you can calculate, like now it becomes exactly same as question number 3 that you tried. So over here, what you need to highlight specifically is this point. X price is the cum price minus bonus debentures. This is 100 rupees. So the impact in the question and its impact in the solution, at one of the places you will highlight this 100. So everywhere you are taking, and that's it. Once you review, so what I want you to do is, the day before your exam, you just have to refer, okay, there is this situation where there is a cum bonus debenture. Okay, I take the X price and this is how I use the X price. That's it. You don't touch anything else in the question because, well, it is normal and it is similar to other questions. This is the only new adjustment. This is what I mean to say, that when I have to optimize on 1.5 days across the syllabus, we'll try to give you situations where we will prepare you for your first revision, second revision. Like, I'm cancelling this right now. So I'm preparing you for your second revision, that you don't have to refer this. First revision, you can refer this. Then I'm highlighting over here. So I'm preparing you for your final 1.5 day revision, where you are in your last 1.5 days, you don't have to refer this entire problem, but you don't have to cancel it also, because this is very few places where you have this come and X concept. So this is the concept and this is its application. After that, see, apne ko FOMO rehta hai, fear of missing out, that what if we miss out. I'm telling you, don't miss out anything if you just refer this part. And if you are, once you are clear, you can cancel up certain questions. You are not really missing out anything. Okay, so your effort gets properly directed. Otherwise, in the last 1.5 days, if you're not able to refer the entire material, again, it is the same thing. You will not feel confidence. You will not be able to attempt simple questions. So we want to ensure that we are well prepared at all stages. अच्छा ठीक है. So now what? Now it goes as a normal question. By ठीक है, 24%, 24%, 12%, 0%. Okay. But there's probability, so I will not do summation of x divided by n. I will say 24 into 0.25 plus 12 into 0.5 plus 0 into 0.25. I will find the expected return, which comes to around 12%. So my expected return is 12%. And then I'll find the standard deviation exactly the same way you did in question number 3, where you will say 24 minus 12 into equal to, so this is 24 minus 12 into equal to, that is 144 into 0.25, comes to 36. 12 minus 12 becomes 0. And 0 minus 12, negative 12 squared, that is 144 into 0.25, again 36. So this is 72. And if you square root this, you will get 8.49. Any problems here? Equity and bond getting interchanged. Any typo errors? I'm not sure what you're trying to refer, but let's say currently it seems to be under control. Okay, so that is done with the first part. This is otherwise similar to question number 3 only. X finance company has offered to buy back the 10% debentures at face value. Should the buyback offer be accepted? So over here, how do I decide whether I want to accept the buyback offer or not? Well, it's a theory type of a problem and there are multiple interpretations. I have a slightly different interpretation. The institute has a different interpretation. Whenever my interpretation collides with the institute, you should follow the institute, because by institute my back apna. So over here, what is my thought process? And that is a reasonable process if you agree. And otherwise, what is the institute's process? So over here, you look at, let us say, the equity share. Equity share ka return is how much? Sir, equity share gives you an average 12% return, but equity share is bearing some risk. Maybe 8.49% is the risk that equity share bears. Whereas if you look at the bonus debenture, a bonus debenture will give you around a 6% return. Sir, how do you say that? Well, the question is telling you, 10% return. It's a 10% come bonus debenture, so it will give you a 10% interest. Now they've not given you the risk, but can I say this is approximately 0%? Now debenture return does not really fluctuate a lot, and hence this can be approximately 0%. Now one interpretation is you give a conditional answer, that is you say that if you want a 2% additional return and if you are okay bearing a 8.49% risk, then very well you go ahead and invest in an equity share. But otherwise, if you don't think it is justified that for a 2% additional return, that is debenture gives you 10, equity share gives you 12, to bear an 8.49% risk, then you will not accept the buyback offer. So that is a conditional answer that you could have given. Now what has the institute done? Institute has said that an equity share in a good market gives you a 24% return. In a normal market gives you a 12% return. It is just that in a bad market, it would give you a 0% return. But the probability of this bad market is only 0.25. So they say there is a 75% probability that you are going to make more than 10% return. And hence, a debenture which is giving 10%, usse better you put money in a share where there's a 75% probability that you can make a higher return. Now, in my opinion, that depends on how risk averse or risk taking the investor is. So to just give that one conclusion is not the most appropriate. Giving a conditional answer that if you are okay getting a 2% additional return at this much probabilities or risk, you go ahead. Otherwise, you can continue in the debenture. Would have been a better solution. But again, my opinion matters less. The institute's opinion matters more. And what does the institute say? The institute over here says that it is advisable for the investor to accept the buyback offer, give the debenture, get that 6 rupees per share, depending on how many shares you're holding, and invest that money back into the shares because there's a 75% chance that you can make a much higher return. Okay, now we can always debate endlessly on whether this is right, that is wrong. Ultimately, what ICI has said, it is the better answer. Better meaning from an exam perspective. What does the ICI say? If an investor is okay with taking a chance at 75%, then buyback offer should be accepted and money received should be invested in equity shares. This is ICI solution. This is point B. The stock can earn more than 10% with a 75% probability and earn 0% with a 25% probability. So I have also given my share of the solutions. So if you are thinking on these lines, I'm not saying that you are wrong, but if I take the past precedence, institute prefers its answers to be written, so we might as well prefer that. So this is point B, which you will do if this similar thing comes in an exam. Are we clear with this? Yes? Okay. Next, you will go to another question which is there behind, which is for a multi-period return. So if I go to question number 14, there is also something pertaining to compound interest, but we will keep that aside for the timing. Let's say you go to question number 14. This is for practice, page number 149. Question number 14. Okay, let us review. Information about the market index and the price movement of shares of Nilesh are given below, covering a 3-year period. See, all sums till now have not taken a combined 3-year period. Here they are taking a 3-year period. Like market means something like Nifty. For example, market means something like Nifty. So market at the end of year 0 is 1275 and end of year 3 is 1698. And average dividend yield, let's say there is 0 in the market. Nilesh is a specific stock where the price is 76. Highlight this, end of year 3. Usually you have done sums where price is given for year 0, then for year 1, then for year 2, then for year 3. Here directly they are jumping from year 0 to year 3. So this is like a 3-year holding period. Average dividend yield is 4%. You're required to calculate the return on the market and return for Nilesh. Now, if nothing is given in a question, they are always expecting you to calculate the per annum return. So over here, we have given that as a reference note. Unless given, the return should be calculated on a percentage per annum basis only. Now, if they ask you specifically to calculate the holding period return, yes, you do it for the entire 3-year window. But if they are asking you to calculate on the return, just the word return, you will have to do it on a per annum basis. So how will we do that? Let us say if I were to look at question number 14, I will look at, for example, market. Can you tell me the per annum return on a simple interest basis? Someone mentioned even in the earlier part of the class, CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. Skip that. Institute does not use CAGR compounded rates in mutual funds, does not use it in portfolio. Eventually, once we are comfortable, I will, as an extra thing, even over here it is written, explain you how to calculate the compounded annual growth rate. But abhi ke liye compounding chhod do. Take the simple return. So this is P3 minus P0 plus dividend, if any, upon P0 into 100. If I do this, will I get the annual return? No, I will get holding period return. I want the annual return. So what will I do? 1 divided by n, that is divided by how many years, or 12 divided by m. So 1 by 3, that is 1 by 3 years, or 12 by 36 months, as a case may be. So over here, this is 1698 minus 1275 plus 0. There is no dividend, upon 1275 into 100 into 1 by 3. What is the answer? 11.05% per annum. This is your annualized return. Perfect. 05 or 06 as a case may be, per annum. This is 11.06. ठीक है. अच्छा, compounding we will do it in another chapter as well. So we have given the referencing separately, but abhi ke liye compounding chhod de. ICAI usually takes the simple interest unless they specifically tell you to calculate the compounded annual growth rate. Okay, now if I look at Nilesh, for Nilesh it's a little tricky. I would say P3 minus, same formula, P3 minus P0, but plus D. But the dividend over here is given in percentage already. Dividend yield is dividend upon price. Dividend is usually a percentage of face value. If you use the word dividend yield, then yield is a percentage of market price. So over here, if I were to rearrange the formula, this is P3 minus P0 plus D upon P0 into 100. So if I were to rearrange the formula, this will be P3 minus P0 upon P0 plus D upon P0. So if you are aware, this will give you the same ultimate conclusion. So I'm just segregating this. So this is 104 minus 76. 104 minus 76 upon 76. So this will give you the capital appreciation plus D upon P0. So D upon P0 is what? Well, this is already 4%. This is already 4. And hence this is 104 minus 76 upon 76.36. Okay, but this will give you the holding period return. This is 4% average dividend yield. This is already average. So this is already per annum. This is not for the entire holding period. This is 4% per annum already. However, this return is for 3 years. So I will have to do into 1 by 3. So this comes to around 0.1228. If I were to take it in percentage, that is into 100. So this will be 12.28% per annum plus 4% per annum. Comes to around 16.28% per annum if it's a multi-year problem and you have to calculate annualized return. I can see 14.04. Okay. I think it is 16.28, where you will do P3 minus P0 upon P0 into 100, but I'll have to multiply this by 1 by n. So if I multiply this by 1 by n, remember my dividend yield is already an average dividend yield. So that is a per annum dividend yield. So unless given dividend always to be calculated on P0, no, dividend unless given is always to be calculated on face value. But if it is dividend yield, the word dividend yield is given in your intermediate as well. You might have heard the words earning yield, dividend yield. If dividend yield is given, then it is a percentage of market price. Then it is P0 percentage. Am I clear with this? Yes. Okay. So this is question number 14. And this kind of takes care of the basics of a single security return and a single security risk. Now we have to go into portfolio setup, because ultimately we are studying all of this because we want to understand the perspective from a portfolio level. So we want to calculate from a portfolio return perspective. So let us say your portfolio has two stocks. One is RIL, one is Tata Steel. Let us say the price of RIL is 1000, price of Tata Steel is 100. Then the number of shares, you're holding 100 shares of Reliance and you're holding 1000 shares of Tata Steel, for example. So your portfolio comprises the amount, the total amount invested will be what? Well, I've invested 1 lakh rupees in the RIL, I've invested 1 lakh rupees in Tata Steel. So can I say I've invested a total 2 lakh rupees ka portfolio? Okay. Now at the end of year 1, all else remaining constant, the price changes. Reliance becomes 1100. Tata Steel, for example, becomes, I don't know, it becomes 950 or 995 rather. It becomes 95. Your number still remains constant. So this is still 100 shares, this is still 1000 shares. What about your portfolio? Well, my portfolio value changes. So what is the amount at year 1? This is year 1, this is year 0. Well, this is 1,10,000. This is 95,000. Which means your portfolio becomes what? Well, I think 2,05,000. So one option is you can find the return of your portfolio as your portfolio, which was 2 lakh, now becomes 2,05,000, and hence there is a 5,000 increase on the base of 2 lakhs. So this is 5,000 return over 2 lakhs. Let's say there is no dividend. That's a 2.5% return. However, if I were to do it on a stock specific basis, so what is the return of RIL? RIL gave you a return of 1100 minus 1000. Let's say there is no dividend upon 1000 into 100. So RIL gave you a return of what? RIL, I think, gave you a return of 10%. Tata Steel, on the other hand, 95 minus 100 plus 0 upon 100 gave you a return of 5% negative. Now, can I calculate my average return for the portfolio? Let's say my portfolio comprises of Reliance and Tata Steel. So can I do 10%, 5%? Well, I'll have to calculate weighted average. So weight of Reliance into the return of Reliance plus the weight of Tata Steel into the return of Tata Steel. What is the weight that Reliance has in your portfolio? Will the price of Reliance be taken as weight? Well, no. It is possible that Reliance has a higher price. But how many shares do I hold of Reliance? That is also important. So will the number of shares be the weight? The answer is still no. So what will be your weight? Well, the weight considers both the shares number as well as the price, and hence the amount that you invested in Reliance, which considers the price per share as well as the number of shares, both of them. And that is the amount invested, that is 1 lakh. Now 1 lakh out of 2 lakhs, here is a 50%. Again, 1 lakh out of 2 lakhs is 50%. It's not necessary it has to be 50%, but here it is. So this is 0.5 into the return of Reliance, which is 10%, plus 0.5 into the return of Tata Steel, which is a negative 5%, which means 10 into 0.5 and negative 5 into 0.5. Does it come to 2.5%? So how do you calculate portfolio return? In this case, your portfolio comprises of 2 securities only, but your portfolio can comprise of 20 securities as well. So what I do is I either find the total amount of my portfolio and do the comparison. But for finding the total amount, you need the price, you need the number, you need everything. Sometimes you might just be given the return percentages. You might just be given this 10% and 5% and the weights. So another way is to find the weighted average where the amounts invested at the beginning are taken as weights, not the price only, not the number only. It is the amount invested at the beginning which will be taken as weights. Are we clear with this? Achha. Now there is one more thing. Let us say if I were to go to year 2. Now this is where it might get a little tricky. If I go to year 2 and let's say the price in year 2 also changes. Let's say P2, the price becomes what? Maybe 12, 10, maybe 1210. And let us say the price over here becomes what? Maybe 90.25. The number is still the same. So when I look at the amount, I would say that this is, let's say, 1,21,000. Over here, this is 90,250. And hence your portfolio in total would be 121 plus 90,250 comes to 2,11,250 probably. Is that correct? Just verify this once. 1210 into 100, 90.25 into 1000. That's right, 2,11,250. Now, if I have to calculate the return for Reliance or return for Tata Steel, this is for year 1. Here, if I have to calculate it for year 2, let's say Reliance ka return, I'll start at 1210 minus what? Please tell me, minus what? That is right, 1100. Upon 1100 into 100, because I want to find the return for the second year. In a similar way, if I want to find a return for Tata Steel, this will be what? 90.25 minus 95 upon 95 into 100. Okay, so this comes to what? Well, this comes to, I think, 10% again. And this comes to 90.25 minus 95 upon 95. Again, negative 5%. Okay, this is just coincidentally the same. It is not necessary that every year this has to be the same. Now, if I have to calculate the weighted average, now this is where it gets a little tricky. If I have to calculate the weighted average, I will still say that the weight of the portfolio comprising of Reliance and Tata Steel will be the weight of Reliance into the return of Reliance plus the weight of Tata Steel into the return of Tata Steel. Now, you guys tell me, the weights we had determined as 50-50, 1 lakh and 1 lakh. For calculating the weighted average, will your weights still be 50-50? What will you take as weights? Will your original amount invested be taken as weights? The answer is no. No, you will not take the original amount invested. Why? Because originally, yes, you may have invested 1 lakh and 1 lakh. However, for the second year, the starting point is not year 0. The second year starting point is year 1. Your return was calculated considering a 1100 price. Your return was calculated considering a 95 base price. And hence, your base weight should be 1,10,000 and 95,000. So over here, if I take 1,10,000 out of a 2,05,000 portfolio, this is around a 0.54. I mean, it's a longer decimal, but for simplicity, 0.54. And a 95 out of 205, that is around a 0.46 weight. So this is a very important point. Typically, we always say that the amount invested will be taken as weights, but that is if it is a single year problem. If it's a problem which has only 1 year, then that is a correct conclusion. But if it's a multi-year problem, then the amount at the beginning of the year will be taken as weights. Why? Because the return is calculated taking the amount at the beginning of the year, and hence the weight should also be based on the portfolio constitution at the beginning of the year. And as a result, over here, this is around 0.54 into the return, that is 10%, plus let's say 0.46 into the return. Let us say this is negative 5%. And as a result, this is 5.4 and this is what? 2.3. And hence this comes to what? Maybe around 3.1%. Are we clear with this? So over here, if I even were to verify this, my portfolio is now 2,11,250. Earlier it was 2,05,000. So my portfolio has grown by 6250, which is around 3 point something percent. So when I calculate portfolio return, we say portfolio return is a weighted average return, where the amounts invested will be taken as weights. However, if it's a multi-year question, then the amounts at the beginning of the year will be taken as the weight for the purpose of this calculation. Are we clear with this? Is everyone clear? Yes? Okay. So we'll just go to this concept once for portfolio return, and we will discuss the questions pertaining to this. Portfolio risk is very important. It is one of the most important parts of this chapter, and portfolio risk is something that we will do in tomorrow's class. So first we'll finish up portfolio return. So let us review this. Portfolio return can be calculated as weighted average return of all the securities in the portfolio, where the amount invested at the beginning of the year in a single year problem, or the market values at the beginning of the year are taken as weights. So market value at the beginning of the year. So when you go to year 2, the values at the start of year 1 will be taken as weights. So this is the formula: weight of X into return of X plus weight of Y into the return of Y. Amount invested or market value can be calculated as the number of shares into the price per share at the beginning of the year. As the returns are calculated considering the price at the beginning of the year, the weights should also be calculated considering the amounts invested at the beginning of the year. Again, as the returns are calculated considering the price at the beginning of the year, the weight should also be calculated by taking the base at the beginning of the year. But in a multi-year question, amount invested at year 0 should be taken for the calculation of weights in the first year. While calculating weights for returns for the second year, the amount of investment, that is market value at the beginning of the second year, should be taken as weights. Like we took 2,05,000 and the weights for 1,10,000 by 2,05,000 or 95,000 by 2,05,000. Is everyone clear with this? Yes. Okay. So we'll try to discuss a couple of problems on this and then we can wrap up for the day. First, we'll do a question number 11, which is a simple question. Question number 11 on page number 147. Let us review this. Question number 11 on page 147. And then we go to question number 4, and I guess that will be it for the day. Mr. X wants to build a portfolio of investment comprising of risk-free securities. Okay. Rate of return is 8%. So I want a portfolio which has risk-free securities like government bonds, where rate of return is 8%, and the market portfolio. Market portfolio is like the Nifty portfolio. You can buy, let us say, the Nifty Sensex market portfolio, where the rate of return is 18% and the standard deviation is, for example, 6%. Okay. The minimum expected rate of return for the investor is 15%. What is this? They are telling you that the minimum expected return of the investor is 15%. So I want to hold both the risk-free security as well as the market portfolio, but at the end, I want to own a 15% return. In what proportion should he hold the risk-free securities and the market portfolio? So in what proportion should you hold the risk-free securities and the market portfolio? So this is your RF, risk-free securities. Let's say I call this as F, and the market portfolio, that is M. Over here, standard deviation is given, but we are not given anything. We just are saying that your minimum required return should be 15%, which means if I were to constitute a portfolio of the risk-free security and market security, my answer should be 15. But how do I calculate it? Well, the weight of the risk-free security into the return of the risk-free security plus the weight of the market portfolio into the return of the market portfolio. Well, do I know my minimum return? Yes, my minimum return is 15%. 15% is 0.15. 15 divided by 100. So you can say 0.15 or you can write 15 also. Equals the weight. Well, I don't know the weight of risk-free security, but I know the return of the risk-free securities. Risk-free securities give me a return of 8%. So this is 8% is what? यहाँ पे बच्चे बहुत मिस्टेक कर देते. 8% is 0.08, not 0.8. 0.8 is 80%. 0.08 is 8%. So this is return of the risk-free securities into the weight of the risk-free securities, which I don't know, plus the weight of the market portfolio, I don't know, but the return of the market portfolio will be 18%. So there are two missing variables. So if I can somehow find one of them, and how do I do that? Well, the total of weights of the risk-free security plus the weight of the market portfolio, the total of weights will be 1. And hence you can say, for example, that let's say weight of risk-free security will be 1 minus the weight of the market portfolio. So over here, if I do 0.15 equals 1 minus weight of the market portfolio into 0.08 plus 0.18 WM. So this will be 0.15 equals 0.08 minus 0.08 WM plus 0.18 WM. So if I were to adjust both of these, I would have, let's say 0.08, if I take on the other side, this is 0.07 equals 0.1 WM. Therefore, WM equals 0.07 divided by 0.1, 70%. So weight of the market portfolio should be 70% and the weight of the risk-free security will be the balance, that is 30%. So if I give 30% weight to the risk-free security, 70% weight to the market portfolio, I will achieve a minimum 15% return. Are we clear with this? So it's not directly asking you to calculate portfolio return. They are saying my minimum portfolio return expectation is 15%. And if I want to touch the 15% return, how much should I invest? So that is the working. Is everyone clear? Any problems here? Okay. Next you have question number 4. We'll try question number 4 and then we'll stop for the day. We can do this together. Question number 4, the last question for the day. X company invested on 1st April 2005 in certain equity shares as below. Okay, for M, 1000 shares of 100 each, cost is 2 lakh. N, 500 shares of 10 each, 1 lakh 50. So maybe that bracket made 110 seem to be the face value. Okay, so your total portfolio is currently 3,50,000. 3,50,000. In September of 2005, a 10% dividend was paid out by M, and in October of 2005, a 30% dividend was paid out by N. You guys tell me, this dividend is a percentage of what? Will this be a percentage of face value or your total cost of 2 lakh or 1 lakh 50? What do you guys think? It is not given dividend yield or anything. It is just given 10% dividend. Must be a percentage of what? Well, that's face value. On 31st March 2006, market quotations showed a value of 220 and 290 per share of M and N respectively. So this is market quotation showed 220 and 290 for M and N respectively on 1st of April 2006. Oh, so we are now going into the next year. We started at 1st April 2005. We got dividend during the year. We came to 31st March 2006 and then we are going on into the next year. On 1st April 2006, investment advisors indicated that dividends from M and N for the year ended 31st March 7 are likely to be at 20% and 35% respectively. And the probabilities of market quotations on 31st March 2007 are as follows. Okay, so this is expectation. So maybe today you are sitting on 1st April 2006. So you know 1 year of the past, what has happened. And you are now trying to also predict 1 year down into the future what will happen. So now you know that you are CA intermediate clear, but you are predicting what will happen in your CA final, for example. So over here, this is the price of M and price of N. There are 3 possibilities. Okay, you're required to calculate the average return for the portfolio for the year 31st March 2006. Okay, 31st March 2006 is past data. This has already happened. From 1st April 2005, you have been given that what is the dividends actually received, What was the market quotations on 31st March 2006? So this is entirely for the year 5-6. Whereas this is entirely for the year 6-7. Calculate the expected average return of the portfolio for the year 6-7. So this is based on the future. Advise X of the comparative risk in the two investments by calculating standard deviation in each of the cases. Okay, so over here they are asking you to advise on the comparative risk by calculating standard deviation. So at the end they are saying in point 3, calculate the standard deviation in each of the cases, that is for the year for the relevant year for stock M and for stock N. Let's first focus on the portfolio. Average return for the year 5-6 and then expected average return for the year 6-7. Let us focus on that first and then we'll look at the standard deviation. If you want, just read the question again. But otherwise, are we clear broadly? Okay, if I go to the year 5-6, I try to do the working for M. Similar working can be done for N. So over here, there is P0 for M. I don't know how much is a P0. Oh, but there is a 2 lakh cost and there are 1000 shares. So 2 lakh rupees I've invested at the start upon 1000, which will come to 200. I want P1. P1 as per market quotations are given to me as 220. In which case P1, let's say, is 220. And then there is D. Well, you have been told that the dividend will be 10%, but 10% of what? Face value. So this is on a per share basis. This is 100 ka face value into 10%. This will be 10. And hence, if I want to find the return of M, it is very easy. 220 minus 200 plus 10 upon 200 into 100. So this comes to probably a 15% per annum return. You can try to do this for N. Again, N is 1,50,000. But how many shares are you holding? 500, which means this is 300 on a per share basis. This is your P0. If I were to look at P1, this is given to you as 290. Price is falling. And D1, there is a 30% dividend, but the face value is 10 rupees. So 10 into 30% gives you, let's say, 3. Any problems here? No. So return of N will be 290 minus 300 plus 3 upon 300 into 100. Can you tell me the number, please? 2.33% negative. That is right. Which means I have this data with me now. Now I want to find the weights. Weights for the year 2005-6 will be amount at the beginning of the year. So for M, this is 2 lakh on the base of 3 lakh 50. For N, this is 1 lakh 50 on the base of 3 lakh 50. Which means if I were to find the weights, this is what? 57.14 approximately. And I mean, you can always find it as a balancing figure, but 42.86 approximately. So if I were to find a weighted average, this is return of the portfolio MN, which is the weight of M into the return of M plus the weight of N into the return of N, which is, let's say, 0.5714. Instead of percentage, I'm taking the decimal, into 15% plus 0.4286 into a negative 2.33%. So if I were to do this working, I would get what? 0.5714 into 15 and 0.4286 into 2.33 negative. Around 7.57%. Am I getting this? And that's about it. That's it. They're asking you to find a return for the year 5-6. Now the problem is in the year 6-7. So if I go to the year 6-7, the problem is how will I find the value? So if I want to find a return, well, this is P for M. I would say P2 minus P1. So P1 I know is 220. But what about P2? Well, there are three possibilities of P2. There are three different possibilities for P2. So what will I do? Well, I will take 220 into whatever is the probability. 0.2, 250 into whatever is the probability, let us say 0.5, and 280 into the probability, which is 0.3. I will take the average price. I don't know what price it will be there. So I will take the average price. And the average price, if you calculate, will come to around 253. Now the dividend for the second year, investment advisors have indicated that the dividend will be 20%. Again, this will be a percentage of face value. So this will be 100 into 20% will come to what? 20. And hence return for M for the second year will be 253 minus 220 plus 20 upon 220 into 100. This comes to what? 24.09%. Now in a similar way, I want you to try and tell me the return for N. Try on your own, please, and tell me the return for N. Like you will have P1 over here as 290. P2 again, you will take the weighted average. 290 into 0.2, 310 into 0.5, 330 into 0.3. So I think this comes to around 312 if you do the weighted average working. And D2, this will be 35%, which will be 3.5. So if I were to find a return of N, can you tell me if anyone has calculated? 8.79%. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to calculate the portfolio return. I found the returns for the second year. Will the weights remain the same? That is 57 and 42. Will the weights remain the same? No. If I were to find the weights for M and N, I will have to take the amounts at the start. So M, you have 1000 shares. M, you have 500 shares. But at the start of the second year, that is end of the first year, M is 220, N is 290, which means if you were to multiply, this will come to 2,20,000, whereas 500 into 290 comes to 1,45,000. So total you have is 3,65,000, and on 3,65,000, if I were to take the weights, 220 upon 365, this is around 60.27, and 145 on the base of 365, 39.73. So if I were to find a return of M and N for the second year, this will be weights 0.6027 into the returns 24.09 plus weights 0.3973 into the returns 8.79. So how much do we get? Well, we will get a return of, so this is 15 and 2.33. This is, I think 18.01%. So if you sit and calculate, it's around 18. There may be some rounding off difference. That's right, 18.01%. So this takes care of your working for the returns for the first and the second year. Then the third part, well, we don't have enough time to do this right now, so we'll probably carry this forward into tomorrow's session, but I'll just discuss this, what they're asking. Advise X of the comparative risk in the two investments by calculating the standard deviation in each cases. So the problem over here is you need to calculate standard deviation. Now for standard deviation, you can look at the past data, you can look at the future data, but in the past you have only 1 year. If you had multiple years in the past, you could have done it in a way you did in question 2, where you had 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can find the past deviation. But I have just 1 year of the past and I can't mix the past and the future. Or I look at the future where there's a range. Remember, for deviation, you need a range of data. Only one data will not be enough for finding the standard deviation. You need the range of data. And the range of data is available for the future years. So when I look at the future year, that is the year 2006-7, this is the year for which I will calculate the standard deviation. So I've explained it over here. Standard deviation can be calculated either by using a range of historical data like it was there in question 2, or based on expectation of future scenarios that is there in question 3. We cannot mix the two. We cannot take 1 year of the past and 2 years of the future. In this case, we have only past data of 5, 6, and hence range of past data is not available. But we have a range of expected returns in the future. Therefore, we have calculated standard deviations based on expected data of the year 2006. So that is the first point. Second is, standard deviation can be calculated either in rupees or it can be calculated by taking percentages. Like I will calculate 220 minus 220 plus the dividend upon 100, so return for M. Then again 250 minus 220 like I did in question number 2 or I did in question number 5. I found the percentage return and from the percentage return I found the standard deviation. That is a more common thing. Though sometimes institute even does it in rupees, the more common thing is trying to first out of these data points, find the percentage return and then find the standard deviation. So I want you to try this before tomorrow's class. So what you will do is, for the year 2006-7, you will find the individual returns. There will be 3 returns of M. One is at 220 price, then is at 250 price, then is at 280 price. Similarly, find 3 returns for N. Then separately sit and at piece find the standard deviation. You can also do it in rupees, yes, but currently we are focusing on one method where we take the percentages. So you will try to find a return for M like you did in question number 5, return for N, and then find the standard deviation in each case. Will you be able to try this before tomorrow's class? Can I assume that you will at least have the time to revise whatever has been done and try this one standard deviation calculation on your own? Okay, great. So we'll discuss this tomorrow, but I want you to try this on your own based on percentages. We'll discuss this tomorrow and we'll continue further into the portfolio risk concept. Okay, so thank you very much for your patience and your time. We'll continue this into tomorrow's session and we'll take and dig deeper into portfolio and have a lot of interesting concept discussions and understanding. So take a good night's sleep before tomorrow's session. We will have a lot of interesting things like correlation, covariance, portfolio standard deviation, and a lot more coming up for you in tomorrow's class. Okay, so that should be it. Goodbye and have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Lots of love. Bye. Any other doubts or queries you can ask right now? Was it a good session? Any problems? Okay, so we will also be doing the FR session in some time. So if you're in FR, take that quick break. And if no, just spend your time in doing AFM, articleship, whatever it is. No, Sunday you will not have a class. It is Monday to Saturday. How do we ascertain probabilities in real life? Well, there is No formula to a certain probability. It is based on your expectation. It is like saying that what is, if I were to ask you, what is the probability of you clearing your CA final exam? Don't take me wrong, but it is based on your preparation. It is based on how papers are coming, a lot of things. And based on that, that is an art. It is based on expectation, not really something you can calculate in using a formula. It is based on your experience and your understanding that you come to that. Other chapters question PDF. PDF will be available on your drive, encrypted PDF. Currently, we will do it for the initial few sessions till the time every one of you gets your books. But after that, if you want, you can, in your app, once you transition to the app, you can view the PDF from there. Yes, probably I'll just message on the group once, but probably tomorrow's class also we'll do once, and then we'll switch to the app. No, I don't think you don't necessarily need. If you have the older book as well, you will get an addendum and you can just refer to that addendum and you can continue with that book as well. Today or tomorrow you will get. Today, in any case, if you want to access, you can review using the YouTube link only. The board notes will be uploaded along with the Google Drive link. So maybe for a day or so, you might not get the board notes till the time you get the PDF link. But after that, it will be uploaded on the same day itself. Okay, so I guess that should be it. Have a good day. More questions are added, yes, definitely. So if you want everything in one place, you can take the new books. Otherwise, those new questions, we will share a PDF on your Google Drive for all students. It will be available and you can access it from your drive. But if you want you have to then refer to materials. If you want everything at one place, you can take the new book. Board note related to regular batch, I did not understand. This is the board note related to your batch. So this is what I've written, all of this that I've written. This is what I'm referring to. Yes, everyone who's also there in FR, take a break right now. You're going to have a good, interesting, long months. You're going to spend more time with me than probably your parents and your family or your girlfriends. Yes, we will do that. Even in FR, you have a practice book, you can refer that. But FR itself, your core curriculum already has so many questions. So in terms of chapters, we will first complete portfolio, then we'll move on to mutual funds, then we will move on to risk management. After that, we'll go to security valuation, then mergers and acquisitions, then business valuation, then foreign exchange, international financial management, derivatives and interest rate. Broadly, that is the schedule for consolidation. Let me see if it is possible. Definitely, we'll try to give more problems for practice. We have, in our book only, we have included questions from past material for consolidation practice. ठीक है, चलो then. Let us call it a day and see you soon. Bye bye. Yes, I will tell you the questions to be done, but currently we are just at the absolute beginning. So currently nothing has to be done. You just have to do the question for standard deviation. But other than that, once after tomorrow's class, for example, I'll tell you which of the questions from the practice book to be done. Yes, you can even have a word at the team that you want this books which are used in this batch only. So they will give you this books only. So that is clarity. राजेश एक्सपोर्ट्स का अलग डिस्कशन करते हैं. We will discuss this during the batch. It's a good India's 115 case study also. चलो फिर, sayonara. Yeah, we will try to maintain speed, but see, if it's just a balance, because otherwise वो आपका if I go at a very slow speed, your time taken will be the same as what is there in the regular batch. So I have to manage the speed with the coverage and the time. So yes, I'll definitely keep that into consideration. But for you, if you are a first timer as well, you can always refer to the materials on your own after the class. You will not face a problem. It is just that the first 3-4 lectures you might think that it is going to be, because you're not doing it in the same way like you had done in a regular batch earlier. So there is a possibility that you might think that the sums are being solved in a bit of a rough way. As you can see, I have solved each and every question in class in a proper way, but if I make you also solve in the same way, it is going to take almost the same time as a regular batch. So I hope you can understand. So we don't want to cut out on any sums. We want to do all the sums, but we want to do it in an optimum way as well. So yes, I'll keep that point into consideration, but if you can also understand where we come from.